A quorum is present. I now call this virtual meeting to order. The time is 4:30 p.m.
At this time, I will call roll. When your name is called, please answer with here or present. Ramon Garza, President.
Present.
Jeff Miller, Vice President.
Present.
Adrian Stevens, Secretary. Trustees, Wanda Heath Johnson.
Present.
Noe Esparza.
Present.
Norma Hernandez.
Present.
And Herbert Alexander Sanchez. Also joining us and will respond with here or present are Kay Douglas, Senior Board Consultant with TASB.
Present.
Brian Clements, Executive Director for Security, Cybersecurity Chief of Police, and Interim Director for Technology.
Present.
Elizabeth Valdez, Executive Assistant to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent.
Here.
And I, Dr. John Moore, Superintendent of Schools, who's also here. Staff members will practice social distancing as required and outlined. We will use masks, hand sanitizers, disinfectants as recommended. I will now turn this meeting over to Ramon Garza, Board President.
Ms. Valdez, are there any citizen participation items for this evening?
We have no citizen participation items today.
An executive session of the board will now be held on the matters contained in the notice for the meeting as authorized by sections 551.001 through sections 551.084 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Opens Meetings Act. The time is 4:31 p.m. Staff, with the exception of Dr. Moore and Ms. Valdez, are dismissed from the boardroom at this time. All other staff joining us video conference will be placed in a Zoom waiting room. Staff who are live streaming the meeting, please stop the live stream video. Executive session is adjourned. The live stream has begun again, and the board is now in open session. The time is 4:36 p.m. I will now turn the floor over to Kay Douglas, Senior Board Consultant with TASB, who will present the Board of Trustees Team of 8 training.
Thank you so much for having me. How many of you have been in training with me before? Well, then
Did you
okay.
do it with us last time?
How many of you
No.
have been in training with me before? I guess I should use this. Hello.
No.
No. Kay didn't do it last time, did you?
You have to get closer to the mic, I think.
There you go.
Oh, I don't know if I can use a brand new mic.
Yes, you can.
I'm a little technologically challenged. 32 years ago, my husband asked me if I wanted to run for the board in Huntsville, Texas. At that time, we had 2 children, neither of whom was in school. I had a full-time job. I didn't know what the school board was. I didn't know what they did, and I really did not care. So I said, no. This is a true story. So he waited a couple of days as though I had not heard him or he had not heard me, and he asked me again if I wanted to run for the school board in Huntsville, Texas, and I said no. When he asked me the 3rd time, I figured out that he actually wanted me to run for the board. And being the obedient wife that I was, I said, no. This is a true story. Then he got me excited about a single issue that was a big deal in Huntsville, Texas, so I signed up to run for the board. Fortunately or unfortunately, 3 other people signed up to run for the same position. And so raise your hand if you've ever run in a contested race. Okay, so did y'all have forums?
Did we have what?
Did you have forums?
Yes. We had one, yeah.
Well, I didn't know what a forum was, but I was pretty sure it's where you tell them why you're running, and they decide whether they want to vote for you or not. So I practiced at home saying, because I love children, because I want to give something back to the community. So the night of the forum, we got there early. I told my husband, take a seat. Don't ask anybody any questions. Don't embarrass anybody, because I thought everybody would tell their family or friends that. Well, not so much. When they finally got to the moment where I was supposed to tell why I wanted to run, I put on my best smile and I said, because I love children and I want to give something back to the community. And the woman in the back row said, that's no answer. And I thought, lady, this is an unpaid job, and I didn't even want to run. So anyway, long story short, I lost. I was not even in the runoff, so I thought, this is great. I did what he wanted me to do. I can now go back to doing what I'd like to do. Unfortunately, it was one of those elections that determined whether the superintendent stayed or left, and he left. And one of the seasoned board members said, I don't want to do another superintendent search. So here's what I've never understood, that if you sign up, if you buy campaign materials, if you go around and you campaign, they actually think you want the job. So imagine my surprise when the board president called me up and said, how would you like to be appointed? I really wanted to say, sir, I didn't even want to run. And that lady at the forum about did me in. But I figured if you have paid money and worked hard for something that they're now going to give you for free for doing nothing, and you say no, you look stupid. So I said, okay. 32 years ago, I was the only person on the Huntsville School Board who was not a teacher, married to a teacher, or someone who taught teachers. I was then and am now a licensed attorney, but I figured if the teachers and the teacher spouses and the teacher couldn't fix public ed, I certainly couldn't. So I went to every meeting. I read the mountain of things that they gave me to read. I voted on every issue. I never said one word. Now imagine this, a lawyer who doesn't talk. What I tell people is I don't talk for free. I told my husband, we can argue, but you'll have to pay me. So anyway, this went on for 4 months until one day they got to an issue where I absolutely knew the answer because it was a legal issue. It was one of those things where the law says you do it this way, common sense says you do it that way. They were common sense people. They were about to do something illegal, so I thought I've got to say something. So I raised my hand, and the board president recognized me, and I thought I told them rather eloquently why what they wanted to do was illegal. And they said thank you and voted 6-1 to do it anyway. True story. They sent it off to, would you listen to somebody who hadn't talked for 4 months? Come on. They sent it off to the district lawyers. The district lawyers said, you can't do that, that's illegal. So I sort of sat up straighter in my chair. But until the same thing happened 2 months later. I can here now tell you that I was finally paroled from the Huntsville School Board 16 years ago. I no longer like children, and I have nothing to give back to the community. But what I did develop was an absolute passion for training board members, because I could barely find the administration building when I got elected or appointed to the board. And by the time I got appointed, my single issue that was the reason why I ran had already been decided, so I really had nothing to talk about. And I think they probably put new board member training in place because I was so lost. So that's how I got to TASB. I was a prosecutor, and I say that slowly. I was a prosecutor, because otherwise y'all think I said something else, and y'all wonder why the district got me here too. It's okay, you'll get that later. But I'm excited to be here, and I actually like required training. I know I was once a board member where I had to volunteer and do required training. But what I'd like to start with is to ask you to think about the teacher in your life who had the biggest impact. And for some of you, when I said that, you immediately thought of somebody, and for the others of you, you might have said, well, should I say him? Should I say her? If that's the case, you're absolutely blessed. But I am going to restrict you to one person. And when you are ready, in no particular order, I'd like for you to tell me who that person is or was and what the impact was. I won't make eye contact because y'all will think I'm calling on you.
Mine is, I've gone from somebody who never forgot anything to somebody who can't remember anything. It was my Algebra 1 teacher in high school. I can't think of his name now. Mm-hmm. And he taught us how to do things and not skip any steps. And we had a test every Friday. We went through all of our homework every day. And if you knew where the equation was going, you couldn't just write down the answer. You had to show every step till you got to that answer. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great training.
I agree. Did you ever tell him that impact?
No, when I was a senior, he took a job out of the public school system. So, but I talked to him a lot in and around class.
I love
so
that.
I'm sorry I missed that opportunity.
Most of us do. Are y'all all fully vaccinated?
Yes.
Well, we can take these off.
No, ma'am,
We can't?
our school district policy says we wear masks
I
while
know.
we're on school ground.
Yes, I read that. I knew that. I was just going to say. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Mine was, well, Miss Satara, but she was Miss Sullivan back when she taught me.
Uh-huh.
She was a longtime Galena Park teacher, and so she instilled the love for reading in me, which I hated. I was an athlete. I was a jock. I disliked reading just altogether. I was really good at math, but I just didn't like to read. And so she kind of got me into reading, which made a huge impact in my life. And I did get a chance to tell her that on several occasions. But the day that they had a retirement party for her here at the district, my twin brother and I, who were in her class, both, who she actually caught us switching classes. So, we both got a chance to thank her and tell her what kind of an impact she made on us, specifically just because we were both we didn't like to read, and so she instilled in us a really good reading habit, and so it made an impact for us.
So I take it you're identical twins.
We are identical twins.
How did she know when you all were switching?
Because he was actually much better at the subject that we were in, which was, I think she was teaching us a reading course, an English course, and I was the math guy, so I was a little lost in her class, and she said, "Go get your brother and meet me in the hall."
Uh-oh. I've heard of twins doing that. I've
Yeah.
never heard anyone confess.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was true, but she was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Who next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
One of my favorite teachers was Mrs. Ruth Elaine Smith, who taught art at Fidelity Galena High School. And when I got into the elective class, she pretty much brought in all the other subjects into art and made art so fun to all the kids. And you could express love, compassion, or whatever into the arts. And she was a big impact in my life until her death. Very supportive of me and taught me a whole lot. And it wasn't just art. It was a variety of things, including many of the other subjects.
Huh. You know what my question's going to be? Did you get a chance to tell her the impact?
Yes. I was able to do that after I got on the school board and she supported me.
Oh, wow.
And that was back in 1998.
Uh-huh.
And so she had an idea.
I love that. Okay, thank you. Who next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
My favorite teacher was Miss McCall.
Mm-hmm.
She was my first grade teacher. I was very, very young. I had just now turned 6 years old. I was an August baby.
Ah.
So I was probably the most immature person that she had. But she guided me along. She taught me so much. And I think really that she focused on me because she knew I was very young. But even then, I was still so immature. So at the end of the year, I failed the first grade, yes. She was an older person. So when we went on to middle school and she passed away. So did I get a chance to go back and tell her how much I appreciated her? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And that was a shame.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll go last.
Well, you're not the last, because he's
I'm
part
last.
of the team
Go ahead.
also.
Go ahead.
Well, my favorite, I had two favorite teachers, but I guess my favorite teacher was my first grade teacher, Miss Moreno, long time teacher here at the district. My biggest is, we had just maybe moved to the States from Mexico. None of us spoke English. So that was I was in the very first bilingual class this school district had.
Wow.
So she really made an impact, and I did tell her how much, and every time I would see her, she's passed away now, but I had the privilege of taking a picture with her and my youngest daughter with her first grade teacher and me with my first grade teacher. So, and her husband was also on the school board here.
Is that Rose?
Rose Moreno. So and we became, I became good friends with her husband, and it just, she always, when I would see her at church or when I would see her, it just, I would always tell her, thanks, and I would go hug her, and now it's, she left a good legacy because her daughter teaches here, her granddaughter teaches at this district, so that was my favorite teacher.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so my favorite teacher was Ms. Roberts, and Ms. Roberts was my fourth grade teacher. And the thing that made Ms. Roberts special to me is she was married to a guy who was in the Air Force, and they had traveled the world. And so every day I went to Ms. Roberts' class, it was like being in a different part of the world. And I was a little kid from South Louisiana, and we never went anywhere. So school was super fun, and I was much like Noe. I was not a great reader or a great student, and so until fourth grade, school was hard. And to be honest with you, after fourth grade, school was hard.
Exactly.
But in fourth grade, School was fun because every day we were at a different place in the world, and we'd talk about Alaska and Mount McKinley, and talk about Russia and China and Hong Kong and South America, and you know, I never got a chance to tell her. At the time that I was in Miss Roberts' class, Miss Roberts was probably 62, 63 years old, and when I was in middle school, she passed away. So, but she taught me how important it was to have fun at school.
Important. Absolutely. Thank you. Who next?
You got to explain to Herbert what we're doing.
Mr. Sanchez. I'm Kay Douglas, and I'm here from TASB. And to start off the training, I asked your team members to share the teacher in their life who made the biggest impact, and who they were or are, and what that impact was. Do you have one?
I could barely hear you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm not good with microphones yet. I'm in training. What I'm asking is, who is the teacher in your life who made the biggest impact? And what was that impact?
Yeah, the one I could recall, it's my my kindergarten teacher. That's kind of, her name was Miss Johnson, and she was a teacher at Lantrip Elementary in Houston. Mm-hmm. And I recall clearly, I was, you know, a little boy afraid to go to school. I actually skipped my pre-K year, so that was actually my first year in school. And I remember the teacher. She was pretty high in age, but she was like a mom. She had that mom instinct. Uh-huh. So I recall her, you know, telling me not to be afraid, telling me that everything was going to be fine, that, you know, I was there to be taught, and she was going to teach me. And it was something that I'm you know, I have never forgotten. Again, the way that she taught, the way that she handled herself was pretty impacting to my life. Mm-hmm. And from then on, you know, throughout my, you know, first and second grade and all of that, I was more comfortable because I no longer feared teachers or individuals at school. So yeah, Ms. Johnson was one of the persons that impacted me.
And the follow-up question I've asked everybody is, did you get a chance to tell her the impact?
No, I was not able to.
Okay. So let me ask a couple of questions. Why did we spend time on this, other than this is my favorite question to ask anybody?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
I'm asking everybody why they think we spent time talking about the teacher who made the biggest impact. And I said biggest impact. Everybody heard favorite. But about 95% of the time, it's a positive statement. Mm-hmm. But I have had about 5% of the time people say it was a negative impact that somebody had. Really? So why do you think we spent time on this? There are no wrong answers.
Yeah, I think that we spend time on this because whenever someone has an impact in your life, whether it be positive or negative, that's going to carry you for the rest of your life. So in a school setting, you know, also the school board members, whatever you do and whatever you say, it's going to impact children and their family for years. So I think that's the reason why we talk about this.
Okay, very good. That's one reason. Why else? And I'm not sure that's good grammar, but what's another reason that we spent time on this?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the rest of them because you've already answered. Thank you.
Oh.
Make them work a little bit.
I think it's important for us to, as a school board, to I think reflect back on you know who and what impacted us during our school years. I think it's a really good way to help us really focus and get in tune with what we're doing.
Okay, that's another reason. Thank you. Why else? Why did we spend time of having each one of you share that?
To remind us how important teachers are.
That's another reason. If 2020 did nothing else in the world, I think it taught parents and students just what it is that teachers do. I have a 9-year-old grandson who this time last year became our home student, and I only have that one. My daughter only has one. I can't imagine what parents who had several kids in different grades did when they became that homeschool teacher. So absolutely, to remind us of how important teachers are.
Did you see that joke where the child is saying, "Mother, my other school teacher didn't drink wine during class"?
Exactly, exactly. Or the students who want a different teacher than their mom or dad.
That's right.
Exactly. I was on a Southwest Airlines flight about, 5-6 years ago, and the in-flight magazine, the entire magazine was dedicated to teachers. And the only thing I remember from it was, I think, the most important part. It said, teaching is the profession that makes every other profession possible. And I went, I mean, it was kind of a duh moment, but yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. So why else did we spend time on that? Let me ask it this way. Did any of you learn something about someone that you didn't necessarily know from the board? And y'all may know each other really well, and you might have known all of those things.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's
Most
just, it's part of it, because as you said, as you've all said, everything that happens to us impacts us. And it kind of helps you see why someone sees the world in a different way than you do when you know some other things about them. Take a moment and think about how your life would be different had you not had that teacher. Would you be in the profession that you're in? Would you have been as prepared for the profession that you're in? Would you have realized that school could be fun, that it didn't have to be scary, that, all of the things that we're talking about, that art could teach you about life? And I think for every one of you, the people that you talked about taught you more than the subject that they were teaching. And I want you to think, for the last thing on that is, think about what that teacher did in making that impact that we don't even let teachers do now. And I'll tell you why I say that, because I've had people say that they spent more time with their coach, their teacher, they went on overnights, they did all these things, and you kind of, if a teacher did that now, you just, your hair would stand up on end. But there were so many, see?
I can actually, going back to my kindergarten teacher, I don't think we do that now. I'm not sure. But we used to have, 30-minute naps for kindergarten.
Yes.
But, during those 30 minutes, I recall that they used to turn off the lights, and you would have your own little blanket. And again, I was a scared little boy, so, the teacher would come, hold my head, caress my hair, and let me know everything was going to be okay. I don't think that teachers do that anymore, but the touch of a teacher, again, as a mom instinct, was something that actually impacted me, because I felt that, hey, somebody here cares about me, and I'm not afraid anymore. But in today's age, that can be perceived as something totally different. So yeah.
I saw a quote that said, children who are loved at home come to school to learn, and those who don't feel that at home come to school to be loved. And not to say that you didn't feel it at home, but when you're in a brand new place and you don't know what's going to be there. And isn't that why y'all do what you do? To make sure every student in Galena Park has at least one person that has that kind of impact. And as you're in the boardroom and you're making decisions about all the things you have to decide about, I want you to think about you know, how what you're doing is impacting those kids, making them less afraid, making them like school, making them like reading or doing, you know, learning those to do things step by step. Okay? Now, I would like, any questions?
No.
And I do have to
But
tell you, I
have a
went to
comment.
kindergarten for 3 years and I didn't go to first grade, so. But go ahead,
Well,
I'm sorry.
I have a comment, something that was different when I was in school, that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because the teacher I mentioned was my middle school teacher. And what's so different now is the technology. Because a lot of times now, back then, everything had to be actually hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
But now the kids are using the artwork, not just through drawing or whatever, they are doing it through technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one big thing, that's a big difference
It-
when I was in school.
It is, when I realized that we had 3D printers, that you could literally print something that I still doesn't work in my brain, but I know it's possible. Anything else about this before we go on? Okay, I always like, my second most favorite thing in the world to do is to ask you, and we're going to get to your board operating procedures, don't think I forgot about that. This is just more fun. Tell me about the great things that are happening for your district. Because I did research on all of you, and I loved when I did research, and when your brand new superintendent started in July 1, he said, COVID's just another thing. We'll get through that too. So I know even in the midst of everything that's gone on in this last year, there have been some amazing things happening here. So I want you, in no particular order, just tell me one or two things that you are excited about that are happening in Galena Park in spite of, in the midst of.
Well, I have to mention
Okay.
that an incentive we gave our employees in Galena Park District, we were able to give $1,000 clearance
Wow.
for every employee in the district, and I think that was a very good impact on not just the community, but the school as well. And I did get some letters and notes of appreciation. So I think that was one big thing that we did that really, you know, not only helping the kids, but helping the families as well.
That is amazing. Yes, sir.
I'm proud of the fact that we made available to all of our students that needed one, something like a laptop computer, and we saw to it that there is adequate Wi-Fi everywhere in the district, and a lot of places where they didn't have it before. So
Yes.
that just, it blows my mind.
It is, and it exposed some of the places where we weren't as strong, but it allowed you to come in and do that, and that is amazing, because you're not a small district. Okay?
I'm
I
really,
like- oh.
go ahead.
Well, I'm proud that all our facilities are second to none, even including the older facilities. And I think most of the schools that I went to school, besides the exception of the high school, was now getting remodeled. But
Yeah.
both of my elementaries, my middle school, and now my high school is all completely brand new with
Wow.
state-of-the-art technology. Even though we're, the majority of our students are economically, the district has made that a priority, that we've got, the best technology, the best schools, the best athletic facilities, the best gymnasiums, the best band halls, the best advantage for the kids. So I think that's what I'm really proud of, that, we invested back in for our kids.
I love that. Thank you.
One of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that we continue to feed our students even during the time when they were out of school. So, growing up, we didn't have a whole bunch. My family didn't. So I knew what it was like to go to school and not have lunch and not eat. And it's a very well documented fact that children who have the meals that they need to get during the day learn better. So I was really proud of the fact that we continued our meal program, that our kids were able to get a breakfast and a lunch, I believe. To me that was just amazing and really, really made me proud. So
Yeah, for so many students, the meals that they get at
It
school
is.
are very important, and the meals that their families
And sometimes those meals, that they get at school are the only meals they get during the day.
Yes.
So I was a little concerned about them not being here, but
Mm-hmm.
you know what? The district stepped up and really did a great job of continuing to feed our students. So I was really proud of that.
And any parent who has ever had to feed a student who is at home all day and all night, they understand how much it costs to feed
yeah.
children. So,
Oh, yeah.
what else? Yes, ma'am.
I second what Mr. Miller said. I am very, very proud of our district handing out the Chromebooks. And to take it a step further too, we put in a program, I believe it's called the BARC, where parents can see what their kids are looking up. And it's amazing to me how we're able to track that
Yes.
and to see what they're looking at. That's a big step in technology, and we're able to either put a stop to it or at least warn the parents what's going on.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's huge because technology has so many positives, so many positive applications, but they have just as many negative ones.
True.
We did not realize that through YouTube and all of these things that we thought were harmless, sex traffickers are contacting our students and all sorts of things. So it is huge to be able to give them the technology but also protect them. Because
Yes.
that's part of what we do is we protect them from things that they don't even know are not good for them.
So I can add something that I'm really
Okay.
proud of, and it goes with what Ms. Hernandez just mentioned. And we actually had an intervention through the BARC program last night with a child that put something on there where they were threatening their own health. So Mr. Clements and some counselors went out to somebody's house actually last night, and we were able to do some great things with the kids. So that's just one example. It's happened all year long. It's just fresh on my mind because I was informed
Yes.
about it this morning. But there's one other thing that these guys as elected officials won't mention, but
Okay.
I'm not elected, so I'll mention it. I watch the news every night, and school board after school board after school board and superintendent after superintendent after superintendent are on the news nightly about all the political unrest that has happened with our recent elections. And the thing that I'm most proud of is while, we have different individuals that represent different interests, everybody works together. And that's what's most important, because when I come to work at Galena Park I.S.D., I really don't have to worry about our board members every day. We communicate, and, they do what they're supposed to, and I do what I'm supposed to, but the reality is I get to focus on running GPISD and taking care of the children we see on BARC, or making sure we got enough food getting out in the right places, or making sure those Chromebooks distribution goes the right way. And I'm not worried about some political issue going on in the community that I have to referee.
Yes.
So from a superintendent standpoint, I really appreciate what the board members are giving us credit for here in the district, but it really goes back to them and their behavior and them staying within their lane and letting us do our job. And I said in a welcome speech to a dedication of one of those brand new buildings this past week, I said the very best thing about Galena Park I.S.D. is our school board, because it makes everything else happen. So that's my take.
And that's absolutely essential, because you're volunteering, you're giving of your time to be able to allow them to do what they do. And I always ask boards, is what you do in this room when you're making those decisions, are your students succeeding because of it or in spite of it? And every day I talk to boards, board members, superintendents, where the conduct of the board is taking away from exactly what you're talking about. Whenever y'all are ready to eat, we can pause and go grab food. Or
Mr. Sanchez hadn't had an opportunity to talk about what he likes.
And you're not getting any food either, so.
Sorry, I was muted. To piggyback off my colleagues, bridging that technology gap is crucial. And I think that's one of the best things that we have done, starting, I think we started that sometime last year, Dr. Moore, if I'm not mistaken.
And actually, we kicked it off in about June, probably, is when it got started, and then we had to have it all happening by the start of school. So yes, sir, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a crucial aspect as we go along through this pandemic. Another thing was the taking care of our teachers. That was crucial. There was a lot of teachers that were hurting, and we were able to take care of them, through incentives and also through support.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very glad that we have taken those steps to help not only the kids but also the teachers.
Exactly. You've got to take care of the people who are taking care of your kids. And we could never, and I am not a teacher, I have nothing vested, and I have a sister who is a retired teacher, but we could never pay teachers what they're worth. But I love to see us do whatever we can to try to show them how much we care. Now whenever we get food and come back, I'm still gonna ask you what else makes you excited, but I'm also, so you know I'm not Pollyanna, I'm gonna ask you what causes you concern. Because even in paradise, there are things that you're thinking a year ahead, you're thinking 2 years ahead. So, who else wants to share? Are we breaking? Are we going to continue?
We can work right through it if they would like, and in that way.
Totally up to them. I work for you.
Okay, so Herbert, we're going to just have Elizabeth deliver lunches, and we're just going to move on.
Okay,
You're the only one not in the room. We can't deliver you one, but just so you know what's going on.
Sorry, Herbert.
That's okay.
But we're glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had one of those major tests, and by the time I was going to make it over there, it's pretty much going to be the end of the
That's
the
all
meeting.
right.
So
Through the miracle of technology, you're here.
That's
So
right.
we're good.
yeah,
We are good, and I will eat
It's
what
crucial.
I'll eat for you.
Technology is crucial.
We'll tell you how good the food is, Herbert.
We will chew very loudly. No.
All right, so can I start out with concerns?
Well, let me make sure I've got everything
Okay,
that you're
sure,
excited about.
sure.
Then we'll get to concerns. Because it's always two sides of the same
Oh,
coin.
heck.
The same thing that's really exciting to you is also the thing that keeps you awake nights. So anybody else got anything you want to brag about?
Yes,
Okay.
our athletic department,
Okay.
our football boys, our basketball kids, our soccer kids, hey, they are the bomb.
They are.
And they did so good, even though with all this going on, they're still doing a very good job. So
Well, that was
kudos to
one
them.
of the things that a lot of districts weren't able to keep up, and it did affect kids. So I'm excited that you're excited. Okay, what else? Who else? I used to ask what makes you proud, but pride's a sin, and I don't want to cause anybody to sin. They're not going to talk to me anymore because they're getting food, Mr. Sanchez. So it may just be the two of us.
Yeah, you might need to carry us, Herbert.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I was saying, are there any other things that you're excited about that your district is doing? And it doesn't even have to be just the district. What's happening in your city that's
Might just have
giving you a reason? Are there partnerships that you've formed that are helping your kids out? And see, I'm telling you, there's some things you won't tell me, and you'll wake up in the middle of the night and go, I should have told her this. So take your time.
So we gave out, I'll give y'all some things. So we passed out 3,000 meals at a super
That's exactly what I'm
at a super site, meal distribution site on last Friday. It went really, really well. I was extremely concerned about traffic and shutting Wallaceville Road down, but we managed to pull that off without too big of a headache out there.
I saw that on Facebook.
And so we know for sure last weekend our children ate good. It was about our third one, but it was by far the biggest. We've been growing each time. Herbert talked to me about trying to get a super site going at one point, and we were kind of already on our way, and he hooked us up a little bit and sent some people our way. So that really went well. We have two of our soccer teams still playing.
Wow.
So they're regional quarterfinals, something like that. They'll play on Thursday night. We actually have a home game in our stadium.
Ooh.
And one of the big positives there is COVID's had everybody restricted to the house, and some of these outdoor events we're able to
Yes.
have gone well. We have outdoor proms scheduled.
Wow.
And, you know, as a new superintendent, I was one of the guys that got to cancel graduation. It was my first active duty. And so I told these guys that we were going to have prom and graduation if I was the only person there. So we're still working on graduation, but we got prom, outdoor prom scheduled for our high schools, and I think kids are excited.
Yes.
And so we have lots of great things and lots of things to be proud of here in GPISD. I'll give you one other statistic. As of today, we have one of our elementary schools with 93% of our kids back face to face.
Wow.
And we haven't told anybody they have to come. We've just called people and told them what we're going to do to keep them safe and asked them if they would please come because, you know, we can do a better job quicker. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do a good job the other way, but we
Right.
can just do it. We're better equipped for that. So, and, you know, some of our other schools are tagging on to that. So we've gone from having about 55% of our kids face-to-face to probably over 65% of our kids face-to-face in a week.
Wow.
And like I said, all voluntary. So we're just asking people to please consider. So we have lots of good things happening here.
It matters because I heard a phrase that said nothing about us without us. So giving people that choice and the ability to give them the information and them having the ability to make that decision, it makes a difference.
Sure.
Okay, any more things we want to brag about before we go on to concerns? And after we go to concerns, you'll still think of things and you can come back and say, I have something, you know, I want to brag about, but anything else? Okay, then you may share your concern.
Well, we have some planning we need to do here in Galena Park for the future. And we don't have all the information we need to plan. So, and to clarify for those out there that aren't in the educational world, we have to decide what school's going to look like next year, and we have no guidance from TEA, the legislature, UIL, or anybody else. You know, everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens. And any of you guys that have been around school a lot know that, particularly Norma, knows that we need schedules for next year. And we don't know how to go about doing that. So it's a huge concern, and it's not just a concern of Galena Park, it's a concern of all Texas schools across Texas. And so, you know, we're hypothetically kind of setting up next year and going to have to present that knowing that it may totally change. I'll give you examples. So, you know, we're thinking maybe we're going to have, instead of having teachers do both.
Yes.
That's tough, man.
Yes.
I mean, our poor teachers, that we're going to try to set up like a virtual academy and run it through our Zotes center, you know, where kids can still be virtual and there's people that are trained to teach them virtually, and you don't have a teacher trying to teach class over here and virtual behind them, you know, and then what does that look like, and you know, how is that set up, and what can we offer virtually that we can really teach well? You know, we can't teach a kid to weld virtually. We can't teach cosmetology. You know, you can't cut somebody's hair virtually. So, you know, we're trying to set this kind of stuff up with zero guidance. So it's very difficult, you know, and no matter how we set anything up or what decision we make, it may be totally wrong. So we're doing a whole lot of work behind the scenes trying to put something out here that, wow, you know. we're not the only ones. So I'm not saying that, but it's quite the undertaking. And, you know, we want to give our parents and our children choice,
Yes.
you know, and give them as much choice as we can and still have fidelity and integrity with what we do.
Most districts actually had some students they couldn't locate. And depending on which school district and how large, that number can go into big numbers. And
We've done all right. We're about 1% down. Most of that is pre-K. So we think they're still here in the community. They just didn't come to pre-K. So we're doing okay in that realm. You know, I'm a little hesitant to say we've hit a home run. You know, but we're doing better than most of the folks around us, which makes me feel good. But you know, I'm really competitive by nature, so just being okay is not always good enough. I think, you know, this is Galena Park. We do better than okay, and you know, we want to locate every kid and give every kid the best opportunity we can. So,
okay.
but that's a concern, and you know, every time I made a decision last summer, I had to call y'all back a week later and tell you I made the wrong decision because TEA changed the rules.
Exactly, it's changed.
So, you know, I have a feeling that's going to happen again. I just don't know when or how.
Well, it has taught us to live in the moment and to get used to being uncertain, for sure. What else causes you concern? Keeps
I
you
have a
awake
concern.
nights?
You know, our kids are falling behind. And again, it's not just Galena Park,
Right.
it's everywhere. But our concern, and again, it's everywhere, we're reaching those kids. My concern is that not every kid's going to walk across that stage. And our graduation rate is just going to be the lowest it has ever been. And you know, because I was a registrar, I always said, man, that graduation rate, got to get every kid across that stage. Well, with this pandemic, with virtual, it's changing everything. And we're not going to get every kid across that stage. I mean, we're trying, we're reaching out to kids, we're giving them as much remediation as possible. Is it enough? Is it enough to get them where they need to go, to graduate, and to continue? That's my concern.
Yeah, I used to worry a lot about summer slide, where they lose learning over the 3 months. Well, COVID slide has been like summer slide on steroids. And it's going to be, we're still trying to figure out what all of the mental health issues that have come up and all of the things that affect the well-being of students when they're not there. You know, I was just looking at stats on child abuse reporting, because one of the reasons you all now have a required training in child abuse is because your teachers are the front line for being able to look at children and know if there's something or suspect that there's not something that's not right. But because of the pandemic, the reporting rate has gone down, obviously, because we haven't been able to eyeball our kids, and even being able to go out and investigate. So there are going to be so many consequences from this that we have not, we know they're out there, but until they're back in front of us, we won't necessarily know how far behind students are. So absolutely, and you're right. Again, none of this is unique to you, but you still have to make decisions for the students in your district. What else? What else causes you concern? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm concerned that we're not closing the gap, performance gap among the ethnicities as fast as I would like. I know that's not an easy thing to do, and I know it's one of our primary focuses. I'm just frustrated that it's so difficult.
Absolutely. Once you see those measures, you want to say, you know, everybody, not only does everybody walk across the stage, but everybody walks across at a certain level that they get, you know, that kind of success. So yes, we are concerned. Yes, ma'am.
Not only is child abuse out there, the rate for domestic violence have increased drastically since this pandemic. and that is a major concern to me. And everybody probably know we have a problem with substitute teachers. Some of the teachers don't want to come back because of the pandemic, because of their age and worry about the kids bringing it in or whatever. So those are a few things. And also, our special ed kids. Some of the parents really don't know how to deal with it
Yes.
at home, especially if you have kids that's dyslexia, whatever the case is. They can't. It's hard for them to handle that, and they want them to be back in school. So those are just a few of the concerns.
And that routine is so important, that a child knows, that there's consistency, that every day they're going to, go to that classroom and have that support or have that help. And that parent knows that every day their child is going to be given what they need. And the pandemic has disrupted that in a lot of ways. So absolutely. What else causes you concern?
I'll piggyback on what Wanda just said about specifically our teachers. I'm concerned that where we're going to end up as far as actually having teachers to teach the kids that come back. Like Wanda said, a lot of teachers are scared. They some of them are older. So they're probably a little more susceptible to getting sick with this virus. So I'm a little concerned where we're going to be at with actually having educators to teach our kids. And then also, the vocational classes, like Dr. Moore said, I mean, you can't teach welding virtually. You can't, teach electricity or plumbing or, I mean, those are all hands-on type, vocations that if you're not doing it, it's very difficult to learn. So I'm afraid that, we're gonna see some decline in those programs, but I'm hoping some things change. I'm hoping the legislature steps up and gives us, I think, a little more direction on what we need to do. But I think we need to get kids back in school.
And I heard today that there's real positive outcomes with vaccinating children from 12 to 17.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that as we move to that, of course, I have a soon-to-be 11-year-old grandson, so the question is, okay, when do we get to those kids? Because it's turning out that who we thought was most susceptible, it doesn't always hold that, so we don't really know. But having more and more of the population be willing to do that, I think will help us. And hopefully fast enough before the variants take over.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think so.
we need, and I loved it when you said that the teacher who had the biggest impact, her child is now teaching, her grandchild is now teaching, because teaching's a calling. And we really want those folks for whom this is a calling to feel safe enough to come in and be able to do what it is that they, what they're called to do. And I don't want to see people leaving the profession because of.
The other thing, Mr. Douglas, I was thinking about is how we're funded, and having we're funded by having kids in school. So if we don't have kids in school, what's going to happen? How are we going to get funding? I mean, we have to have that to continue to educate kids, to provide a safe place, to provide a safe classroom, to all these things take funding. How is that going to be impacted by all of the things that are going on? I think there's going to be. I think that's a very serious concern that I think we're probably not going to see we're probably going to see the real impact of that in years to come. So I'm really concerned about what the regulations are going to be. How what do we have to do to get funded? I mean, what do we have to do to continue to get kids here so we can get funded? I mean, those are all questions that we don't know the answers to yet.
And that's why I love the idea of having a virtual academy, because for all of the children who are actually not doing as well because of virtual, there are some children who are actually thriving. So being able to provide every child what they need is I mean, because we've always thought of special ed children as having the individualized education plan, but shouldn't every kid have one basically?
True.
Because even identical twins, one was better at English, one was better at math. You know, it's not ever going to be one size fits all. So having the flexibility from the law to be able to provide those things without it harming the district, I think is important.
I think my concern has always been funding, whether it be federal government, whether it be state. It seems like they're always trying to cut pay, and what that affects is the teacher's salary, because that's our biggest expense as a
Yes.
district, is our teacher salaries. And we want the best kids, but when you look at it, how we pay our teachers compared to other countries, you know, I would always thought U.S. would be the number one, and we're like number 7. You know, the neighbors to the north, Canada, they pay their teachers more than us, and I was surprised. Well, not really surprised, but Switzerland, you know, average teacher makes over $100,000 a year there. So yeah, we want the best kids, but then we don't put emphasis on who's teaching those kids, and I think that's a concern, because legislature's always trying to see where they can cut school funding, and all that's going to do is when they cut funding, we're not going to be able to give our teachers raises, because that's our largest expense as a district. That's our largest budgeted item.
Yeah.
Is salaries. So that's always a concern with with all the other concerns that we have. But I think if we don't have the funding, I mean, there's nothing, no matter how much we want to teach or how much we want to buy computers, if we don't have the funding, whether it's from the state or federal government, we're not going to be able to achieve the ultimate goal, which is to make our student the best students that we possibly can. So that's I think that's I have a lot of concerns, but that's, and I always ask, because I remember when we say, hey, well, we're going to pay the teachers for all the cold days, and I was like, hey, are we getting funded from the state? And I always ask, hey, do we get the money? Because I'm always, they say they're going to do it, but until they do it,
Yes,
you
exactly.
You can't. I'm a business owner, so I know that when I write a check, the money. I mean,
Yeah.
and we're writing checks sometimes on somebody saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you."
Yeah.
But we're waiting months before that happens. So that's always scary, that we're dependent on too many other people for funding.
Yeah, and so many times the funding gets shipped here, but it doesn't make it to the district, even with the COVID funds. I'm going to give you a break in just a second, but if you go back to the idea that teaching is the profession that makes every other profession possible, if we truly believe that, then why don't we? Yeah. And historically, we paid teachers and nurses less because they weren't really expected to be the breadwinner. They were supposed to have a dad or a husband at home that was doing that. Well, that hadn't been the case for so many people for decades. And nursing has caught up. Teaching has not. So until we absolutely start to value what our professionals are pouring into our kids, nothing's going to change. And that's sad.
That's sad.
It is. We've been at this for an hour. I'm going to give you a 5 to 7 minute break. My mother said if I give you 5, you'll take 7. So have a bio break, get more food, walk around. If your Fitbit is beeping because you should have gotten up 20 minutes ago, and
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm still eating.
remember we are still being streamed, so behave yourselves.
Well said.
Behave yourself. Yeah.
Oh, I love his picture. Yes, it is, but it just looks so cool on that screen.
I wonder why.
Now, one of my Zoom accounts, I have a cool picture, and the other
I
one,
learned from you
can't
one.
figure out what it was I did differently.
You don't know how it happened?
Much of my life, I don't know how it happened.
I just know she goes down to the radar a lot. And then the border law,
I hadn't eaten today, so if I eat this box, I'm just thinking.
prosecutors down there.
I know, I'm hungry today. I usually take it home, but I'm hungry.
Yeah, I do too. I used to take it home.
I keep moving mine around because I realize if I leave here, then I can't see them, and it's,
I'm gonna feed my friend.
So,
but I actually ran into it a minute ago, and I thought, now I'm on camera kissing the microphone.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So yeah, she's married to my cousin. So
Okay.
I've known her my whole life. That's really the only person I know in any kind of law.
Going too much when you're not there.
Well, when you see her, if you see her, tell her I work for David Weeks. If she doesn't know me, she will absolutely know my boss, David Weeks.
Yeah, she's,
Okay, we're not doing too good. We weren't doing too good.
she's a good girl. She's been married into our family many years ago. She's been a very
Okay, I'll pull it up. Thank you.
Is really nice.
Her husband is a guy named John, who's a federal prosecutor down here in Harris County. So, I'm not sure.
Both of those names sound extremely familiar. Of course, I'm so old, everything sounds familiar, but they do. And it's a small group of people statewide that prosecute.
I don't know too much about what he does.
Probably important that you don't.
Yeah,
You probably have to do.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what his
How your
specialty
grandbabies
is.
doing?
Oh, they're great.
They
are.
I don't eat it, but I shouldn't be eating it. But,
I'm sure you had some good food while you were at school.
oh,
That's good. You prosecute.
man, there's so many good restaurants we always go to. We never stay at home. I mean, unless we go with the kids, because we just like to go out. We had this night, we ate at this Mexican restaurant called Hacienda Cisal. Cisal is like a maguey kind of thing.
And I did that for a very
Who all went?
Lorenzo, his wife, and me and Yolanda. Me and Loresa shared this. Someone
I swapped it up.
Yes.
So the thing is,
See, I don't know. He was. He did. He did, and he didn't make it.
Right.
they put a
He did run for mayor.
red sign on it.
Bobby Barrett,
About Texas, teaching and all that. Texas.
long time, and remember?
Yes,
I thought he did. Maybe he didn't.
That looks really good.
Like some purple corn tortillas.
I ended up,
That was, I think that was the best one.
Yeah.
this has been,
But I did not know he was sick.
I didn't know you said. 'Cause I knew,
I've been so fortunate.
I hadn't seen him in a while.
It's been so good for me and my family.
and it really is perspective.
Yeah, and then I ran
Doesn't mean
against
that
Alvin
nothing
for
bad has
mayor
ever
and
happened.
got
Doesn't
out
mean
of
you've never
politics.
had a dark.
You've been there, right?
It's been a long time, but I've been.
Oh, it's totally different. I mean,
Yeah.
when was the last time you went?
When
We try to
Angie
go
and I
by there.
When Angie and I got married,
Exactly.
Oh,
20,
oh,
22 years ago.
it's totally different.
Really?
Oh, totally.
We've been saying we're gonna go back.
I think we've been going,
We're going to Cabo.
we didn't go last year, but the year before that, we went twice. And we were going last year. I think I've been there.
We're gonna go to Cabo for the first time
Oh, you love that.
in December, I think.
You love that.
And it just
I think I've gone to Cancun
Refried beans.
16, 17 times. That's my, by far, my,
And I
for me,
think we're losing.
They're good, but I can't.
And some people
What?
are so optimistic all
What?
the time.
Because
It's just-
in
but-
2.5
but
hours
sometimes-
literally,
sometimes we do
you could be on the
feel-
beach.
And since the news, I mean,
From
by
here.
definition.
So when you leave
It's a
there,
lot of food,
2.5
though.
hours,
That's bad news.
It's a lot.
you could be at your hotel.
When I eat this one,
It makes a
take the
difference.
other home, 'cause I can't eat all that.
Me too, because
Hawaii, I've been to.
Raul can have some of this too.
Hawaii's pretty bad. It's 8 hours to
Good.
I know.
What is in this snack bag? I mean, I'm just so impressed.
To get to a nice beach.
One thing we've done around here is eat.
That is so cool.
The old airport, original airport.
Look at there.
Is it in the same
Oh,
place?
yeah, I'm definitely staying all night. Got my toothbrush.
That's what I remember the most.
That was a whole nother chapter.
The school guys when we had a truck. I'm
Yes,
like, what
yes.
the heck?
I mean, you know, it's totally
That's awesome.
everything we
So where do you usually stay?
Exactly. That's what I'm telling people, is that there's things, we were talking about doing outdoor proms, which I love that idea. I.S.D. I guess does sixth graduation, and they did the
That's where
outside.
to go. I'm gonna kill you,
They
man.
have decided that they will do the outside every year, because they got to have so many more people and all of those.
So we're back in here.
Right.
We have
I gotta take Angie back. We haven't been since we got married.
They considered rain contingencies, they didn't talk to me about it. I didn't even think to
I
ask.
think Marriott has a meal in there that's really nice too.
Or be eaten alive.
They have some kind of, like little
I know you're not gonna do
lagoon cabins on the lagoon or something.
Tell how many people, how many scam type things they get about my Amazon account, about more
Oh, you have, really?
we close your account, you can't reach it.
Oh, I ignore, yeah,
All your information.
exactly. Just ignore it.
I'll go out there with you and can have fun.
I got that on my Amazon.
Dominion.
And like you said, American Express.
I love all the cultural stuff. Did you guys go to Chichen Itza?
And we were interviewing, and that was late at night, we had a bunch of interviews, and he said something.
Internal revenue, but something like
Really?
some government groups like.
A lot of stuff to do there.
I mean, he was just incredible, he said, I
They
did,
didn't target people
and that's why
our
we
age.
that is, if,
Cause I seen, and my son told me, Mom, whatever you do,
Did y'all rent a car? Did you take a taxi?
I try to do anything this time.
I don't respond to anything.
Exactly, you can make my body be here, but you can't make me learn, and you can't make.
Oh, no, oh, no.
Because they're learning, it's the performance that sometimes they're,
But a lot of
Where to go?
We're back.
Oops, I think I've got this.
So are we.
Tear something up.
Okay. Any more things that are exciting to you or things that you need to express concern about?
I have something else that we didn't mention
Okay.
that's exciting. So several people here talked about our mental health, being concerned about mental health. And,
Yes.
and earlier this year, in the, early on, even back when I was interviewing for this job, one of our board members, and she's not present tonight, Ms. Adrienne Stevens, made a comment about mental health of our teachers and students and COVID and that kind of stuff. And it kind of spurred on some of the people here. I'm not going to take credit for it. Some of
Right.
the people here knew that, and they kind of ran with it. And I don't know how many people know, but we have a pretty awesome mental health component to what we're doing around here in Galena Park. We have an outlet. We have a place for our kids to reach out to that's where they can be members of groups. We now have what we call an EAP through our health insurance plan, where our adults have an outlet with 6. I'm guessing. I might miss this by a little bit. I think it's 6 free visits with
Oh, wow.
with a professional that we're offering through benefits. So, 2 years ago, that wasn't even on our radar screen here in Galena Park. And now it's at the top of the list. So, I'm not going to say it's perfect. We always got work to do. We can always be better. But I'm feeling pretty good about our efforts in the mental health game.
And it makes a difference. The number of calls to mental health professionals and hotlines has gone up this year. And one of the things I always like to say is, you know, how are you taking care of your administrators? How are you taking care of your teachers? And I got a call from a superintendent today in a district where they lost a teacher in the past week to, you know, natural causes, but it doesn't matter when you lose somebody why you lost them necessarily. And he said another superintendent called him to say, you know, I'm sorry for what's happening in your district, you know, is there something we need to do to help? And just to check on that superintendent. And that is so important, no matter what level you're at, no matter how many people you supervise or don't supervise. So I'm excited to hear that because it matters. It does. Okay, do you want to go ahead and take a look at our board operating procedures? And I know you got them in advance, and you have a hard copy here. And I'm not going to obviously go through them line by line, even though a lawyer probably should do that. No, just kidding. But is there anything that anybody looked at and had questions about, or something that just that we need to talk about? Because we recommend that boards take a look at them once a year, especially if you bring on new people, and you didn't bring on any new people. And congratulations on not having to have an election this year, because that's a lot of work and some money. So I have run opposed and unopposed. Unopposed is way better. So congratulations to your two trustees who are not having to go through that. But anything in here or anything that anybody, and I so appreciate you for having the new framework in here, because the framework, because normally TASB prints them up, and it was changed in November of 22 by the State Board of Education, and you have the newest copy, and we actually, in terms of getting team building credit, have to spend a little bit of time talking about it, but I'm so impressed that you already have the new one, so kudos. Now, Mr. Sanchez, do you have a packet? Do we need to bring you one? Mr. Sanchez?
I have it here.
Okay. Because I would have run right over to wherever it is you are and
No,
given it to you. You know what this reminds me of is when you go to Burger King, when you could actually, I guess you can go in now again, and they'd have both menus on the wall, and they're exactly the same, and you have people standing there looking at this one, and then they look at this one. It's exactly the same. And I know in all of your fun times, you probably have not memorized these, but if there's not anything that particularly stands out, there are a couple of things that I would like to walk you through. So if you will turn to, okay, they have, it's interesting page numbers. The board member, the code of ethics, we'll just spend a little bit of time on that, just because I like that. And you're captive, so I can. And not that I think, no, I've heard you're the gifted and talented board, so I don't think there's anything that we have to do. But sometimes I like to remind boards because, you know, so many times we talk about, is this legal, is this not legal? Ethics is not about law. It's about how we agree to conduct ourselves. It's not, you know, I didn't have any jurisdiction down here anyway, but it's not something, it's not a have to. But I think one of the things that has become increasingly difficult, not here, but in places that you read about, is being able to recognize that not everybody sees the world the same way, and it's okay that we don't all see the world the same way. So just to spend a little bit of time talking about this, And we broke it down into an acronym that spells out ethics, but the first three have to do with attitude, equity and attitude. And just take a look at those and kind of tell me what stands out for you, if anything. You know, is it I will be fair, just, and impartial in all my decisions and actions? I will accord others the respect that I wish for myself. I will encourage expressions of different opinions and listen with an open mind to others' ideas. So what stands out to you in that section?
Number 3 stands out to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Why is that?
Some of the other things I think are fairly obvious and probably just come natural. This one makes you actually stop and think about it and maybe do something you wouldn't have thought, like encouraging people that you think might have a different opinion but aren't speaking up to go ahead and, hey, come on.
Absolutely. Were you going to say the same thing or something?
They're almost identical to what
That's
he said.
great minds thinking alike. And it's so interesting because I learned a new word this week, and I don't do that a lot because I thought I knew all the words, and this is a word I'd never heard of. It's homophily, HOMOPHILY. And what it means is that we are attracted to people who are like ourselves. So we want to surround ourselves with people who think the way we do, look, whatever it is that is, something that appeals to us. And I learned it one of the nice things about COVID is that you get to go to all of these conferences in other states for free because, it's virtual, so you don't have to leave your house and you don't have to. But I learned that in the context of talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's that it is a natural tendency for us to want to surround ourselves with people. And I think even now, we've gotten more so that we're kind of in an echo chamber, that I only listen to the people who think like I do, so we kind of echo each other. And then when I run into someone who doesn't, I am just horrified, because we all agree that this is the right way and this is what's important. But I love that because it says that you will encourage people, not that you'll just, grit your teeth and listen because you have to. It is you will absolutely reach out to somebody and say, so, Noe, what do you think about that? And I think that we've lost that. One of the things that I say is that if all of you thought exactly the same way, we would only need one board member. But each one of you brings something different to the table in your experiences, in what you do in your life outside of this, in the people in the community that you have contact with. So having all of those is so important. And what that means for me, what it taught me is in those 6 months where I only spoke twice in the boardroom, I don't know that if I had spoken up more, maybe we would have made better decisions. Not that the decisions we made were bad, but they might have been even better for kids. So I love that. Anything else stand out for anybody in those first 3? And the other part about that was not just encouraging them, but listening with an open mind. So many times when somebody else is talking, all I'm thinking about is what I'm going to respond. So I don't even hear some of what you're saying because I'm thinking as soon as he stops talking, as soon as she stops, I got these points I'm going to make. And we really aren't listening anymore. And it makes a difference. Okay, look at the next section on stewardship. And I don't mean to demean you by reading, but sometimes I leave my glasses at home, so I don't want to, and because I'm an auditory person. But I will be accountable to the public by representing district policies, programs, priorities, and progress accurately. I just love alliteration. I'm not even sure what that says, but I love the P's. I will be responsive to community members by seeking their involvement in different district affairs and by communicating their priorities and concerns. I will work to ensure prudent and accountable use of district resources, and I will make no personal promise or take private action that may compromise my responsibilities. What stands out for you in those 4?
I would say accountability. accountability to not only the students, but also the staff and the community.
Yes. You know, we sometimes have given accountability a negative connotation, that somehow it's something that's imposed on us, but holding yourself accountable and being accountable to other people is important. But I love that it says by representing things accurately. You know, sometimes if I want to sway you to my point of view, I might not tell you everything. You know, I used to do that with my mom when I asked her for something. I didn't want to tell her everything because then she wouldn't do it. But it's so important. We talk about transparency all the time. Now, there's some things you can't tell folks by law. I mean, there's certain things that you just can't. But of those things that we can, it is so important because even as you say you're planning and you don't know what's, you know, those plans may not work, but at least your community knows that you are, to the best of what you know right now, you're telling us, and it may change tomorrow. But that is, I think, the kind of confidence that allows you to not hold an election because they say, you know, we might not know where this is going, but we trust you to get us there. And that means a lot. Anything else stand out for you in those next four?
For me, I will be responsive to community members by seeking their involvement in district affairs and by communicating their priorities and concerns is something that stood out to me. You know, obviously, this is an elected position, and you know, we're here to be good stewards of the community's taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. And so I think getting in, the community involved and hearing their perspective and getting their opinion is extremely important. But also, the other thing that stood out to me was I will make no personal promises, because with that, you know, you get, as board members, people know you're a board member, and they come to you, they call
Mm-hmm.
you, they see you at the grocery store.
That
and say,
happens
"Hey."
here too?
Oh, yeah. And you know, so we have to remind people sometimes that, you know, we don't make policy, we don't deal with day to day. You know, that's something that we have to refer to the superintendent and his staff. And
Mm-hmm.
so those are the two things that kind of stood out to me, and I think they kind of go hand in hand.
I think you're right. And I have to tell you, I learned to shop really early in the day or really late at night because people would stop you in the grocery store, and they really don't care that your ice cream is melting while they're telling you stuff. My son played 7th grade football. I had to watch the games from my van because if I went in the stand, somebody was talking to me about their kid because there's, you know, a school board member, and I would always be trying to make eye contact and miss something that he was doing. So I love that you're being responsive. But when we look at the framework, one of the things that's been changed is there's a bigger emphasis on that two-way communication, because sometimes we're struggling so hard to get communication out to the community that we're not always able to get information back. And I can tell you a cautionary tale. Huntsville did a bond election that failed miserably about 5-6 years ago, and if we did not get that information back from the community, because if we had enough coming into us, they would have told us in advance that it wasn't going to work. So it's so important to have that two-way and to have people, again, nothing about us without us. So what else stood out for anybody? I don't want to. One thing about district resources, so many times we think that's money. It's not just money. You talked about facilities. You've talked about staff. It's having the staff in place in the right places, you know, and taking care of that staff. So absolutely. Okay, the third one is honor and conduct. I will tell the truth. I will respect the majority decision as the decision of the board. I will base my decisions on fact and the best interest of the students rather than supposition, opinion, or public favor. And that one that says, I will tell the truth, sounds really straightforward, you know, because either it's the truth or it's not. But I think it goes beyond that, because if I tell you something that I honestly believe is true, and it turns out not to be true, then I kind of owe you a duty to come back and say, you know what? When I said that, I believed it, and it was not true, and I'm sorry. And that's often really hard. But if you don't, if you tell somebody something that they find out isn't true, then pretty much they don't believe you anymore. What about if I tell you something, and it really is true when I say it, but it changes? Do you think I owe you a duty to come back and say?
Oh, yeah.
Probably just as much.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes we're just, well, it was the truth. It was true when I said it, but it's the perception.
So one of the things that's exactly what happens, by the way. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, ma'am. So one of the things that happened this past summer is exactly what you're talking about. We would give the community information based on what we thought we were going to do, and then it would change, and we would have to go back to the community. And something we've learned, something at least I learned, is when new information comes out, it's for a lot of school districts and superintendents, it's a race to the podium to tell everybody what's going on. And you know, I was right up there, you know, I was running right alongside all those experienced guys until I messed up about 3 times. And then I realized, you know, maybe we need to let those guys go ahead and make their announcements. Let's see what happens when they make those announcements, and let's just watch before we make any announcement. Let's let a few of these other folks test the waters with all this new stuff first. And I found out that you end up giving your community a lot better information that way. It may not be as soon, and you know, then we get phone calls. Hey, you know,
So-and-so's
Katie
doing
or
this.
Pasadena
Yes.
or so-and-so's doing this. What are y'all doing? Well, we're working on that. We'll get back to you in just a few days. So being a little behind the curve of new information, particularly in a pandemic, I have found to be much more trusting. I find the community to be much more trusting if we do it that way. Just FYI, and that's something that I learned through the experience of trying to be a good superintendent and get out there and tell people as soon as the rules change. You know, but boy, I learned some lessons the hard way. So.
I mean, how many times do you hear on the news, breaking news, breaking news? So we always want to have the breaking news. But I was the last of 6 children. There were some mistakes that my older brother and sisters made that I didn't have to make because I saw what they did. So very wise, a wise decision. Anything else stand out for this for any of you on those 3 under honor and conduct?
Respecting the
Let me go to ladies first. You know what? Looking at the second one, I will respect the majority decision as the decision of the board. I pretty much did like Dr. Moore. When I first got on the board, I was so green. And it was hard for me to, you know, I'm like, oh, I could get on there and make a big difference. And I had to learn that, hey, your one vote doesn't mean anything. And so going to the many trainings that TASB and the National School Board offered, I was able to learn through that, you know, because I had to step back and say, oh, wait a minute, Wanda. And I thank God I've learned a lot from that. But I was making some of the same mistakes that Dr. Moore said he made, you know, by telling the people the truth. So that one definitely stuck out to me.
Yeah. And it's hard because, especially when you are passionate about a subject and you think, again, that what I think is right and everybody ought to think this way, when you are on the losing end of a 6-1, 5-2, 4-3, you almost want to go say, and I don't know if that happens here, but so many times when you are on the side that doesn't prevail, you're who they put the microphone in front of, you're who they call up to get a comment for the story. And you just want to say, I don't know what they were thinking. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen anybody do. But you learn that you can't. Well, you can. I don't want to say you can't. It's just not very productive. And when you're on the prevailing side, you don't want those people who voted against whatever it is to do the same thing to you. And we have, I have boards that I could sell tickets to their meetings for just those very reasons. And it's just important to realize that I don't always have the best idea. And even if it is the best idea, we'll probably get around to it. But majority rules. I was training once in South Padre Island, and a board member said that they were on a board that had a 4-3 split. And whenever they were discussing something, one of the board members would, at some point, put their 4 fingers up, like on their shoulder. And I thought, is this a gang sign? And he said, no, it basically meant, we don't care about your opinion, 3 who are in the minority. We've got 4 votes. And
Wow.
no, there are some places that are the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Rude.
And I'm not going to tell you that every single, I don't want to teach y'all bad habits. I don't.
How does that?
Uh-oh, I've taught you something bad. But I don't want to tell you that every vote has to be 7-0. What happens is, as you work together and you think through things together and you listen to each other, a lot of times they do end up being 7-0. But whether it is 6-1, 5-2, 4-3, doesn't matter unless it's always the same split. And when I see that, I know that boards are no longer talking about the issues. It is, if Mr. Miller proposed it, he didn't vote with me on something 5 years ago and I'm still mad about it. So if he proposes it, I'm voting against it, even if it was the best idea in the world. And that happens because we're human. We are. I mean, I don't mean to demean other folks, because it's really easy to get, entrenched, but it hurts the kids. So I just love that one, because it says no matter which side of the issue I'm on, I'm going to support the decision of the board. And more importantly, when we walk out that door after we've had that vote, it's over. I'm not going to stew about that for 5 years. I'm not going to tell everybody I know, how horrible that was, because, there's very few things that are the be-all and end-all. There just aren't. Anything else on those before we talk about integrity of character?
No, I was talking about the same one.
doing the same
Learning
one.
to respect the majority opinion is your decision once it's made.
Yeah, great minds. Y'all are sitting there thinking the same thoughts. Oh, the other one I wanted to talk about
Scared
is basing your decisions in fact, and not, public opinion, not, it's so easy now with social media. As soon as something happens, how everybody on Facebook thinks, what everybody on Twitter thinks, what everybody, and they even have new ones I haven't even signed up for yet, or I signed up for them and I forgot the password, so, and it's kind of like when it was old school, when you're in the board meeting and you talk about something that brings out a bunch of people in the community, and it's really easy to feel the pressure of the people who are in the room and believe that they represent the majority and that everybody thinks the way, they are. Well, newsflash, most of the people who like what you're doing aren't coming out to tell you every time you meet, just wanting to say how glad we are, that's why we have School Board Appreciation Month, because there's 1 month where we do that. But 9 times out of 10, if I like what you're doing, if I like the way you're doing, you're not going to hear from me.
True.
But if you do something
Oh, yeah.
that I don't like, I will be here and I will assume that I bring the weight of the whole community, that everybody, or at least I'll tell you they do, even if they haven't, if they're not here, then shame on them. But they could be a very, very vocal minority. And so it's hard, but with social media, they don't even have to show up anymore. They can just blast you or trash you on there. So it's really important to keep it in perspective. And what's interesting is we say we're going to do what's best for kids. What's best for kids isn't always what's best for parents. What's best for kids isn't always what's best for staff. So it's hard to sometimes separate, because by and large your constituents aren't your kindergartners. They're not voting for you. So it's hard sometimes to be that voice for them. But I love that, because it's like, what's the fact? What are the facts, and what's best for students? So, integrity of character. I will refuse to surrender judgment to any individual or group at the expense of the district as a whole. I will consistently uphold all applicable laws, rules, policies, and governance procedures. I will keep confidential information that is privileged by law or will needlessly harm the district if disclosed. And I will not request or accept special favors from district employees. What stands out for you out of those four?
I will consistently uphold all applicable laws, rules, policies, and governance procedures. I don't look good in orange, so, and I don't think any of us would look good in orange. So I don't want to be on that end of things. So I think that's something that's to me. It's really important. Obviously, we want to follow the rules and laws specifically. So I think that's really important.
It's also important that your policies are actually law in your district. And it's so easy to say, oh, well, you know, not that kid. I didn't mean for it to apply to that kid. But if you don't uphold your own policies, because people always say, can we get sued for that? Well, anybody can sue anybody for anything. And I think in California you can do it for $50 online. But what you're really asking is, will we lose? And if you have a rule that says you do X and your practice is that you're doing Y, or you make that exception and you do Y, you're going to lose because those are your own rules. And the other thing, you know, one of the things y'all talked about was allowing staff to work things out themselves, like for complaints. But it's important that you one, allow them to do that because that's what you pay them for. And if I'm a teacher and somebody jumps over me to go to a board member with a concern, if they don't tell me, I never get a chance to fix it. I can't fix what I don't know is wrong. But the other thing is, your staff needs to know that if they're following the policy you put in place, that you're going to uphold it. I mean, not because you're taking sides, but because you're upholding the policy you put in place. So yeah, I love that one. And I think if you go to the state, you can wear white. How do you look in white?
I don't know. I'd rather not be in any of those costumes.
Yeah, you just want to be able to pick your own clothes every day.
I want to pick my
Yeah,
own thing. I'll be good with that.
you know, I'm from Huntsville. I'm from Prisons R Us, so I just want
That's true.
to say we've got some snazzy outfits.
And I think way before you go to orange or white, I mean, you make the news, and there's already plenty enough districts that have been on the news.
Isn't that the truth?
You know,
Yes.
we definitely don't want to be, not for that reason.
Exactly.
We want to be on the news for the good things that our kids are doing, not for something that we're doing bad.
Exactly. Absolutely. Anything else in those four stand out for you?
I think keeping privileged information confidential is important and a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need some trainings so we know where to draw the line.
Absolutely. And anything that's based on law, you know, is going to change. And what was law yesterday is changed by commissioner opinion, changed by an AG opinion. So it is important. And, you know, we hold on the one side being transparent and giving people information. But on the other hand, you have to keep confidential those things that are confidential. You know, we don't want student information. By law, we're not supposed to give it out. But even if that weren't the law, we wouldn't want to do that. Same thing with personnel. If I were going to be reassigned or disciplined or something, I would want to hear that from my supervisor, not on the street, because someone had loose lips. Mm-hmm. And so it just, you know, again, we want to have the breaking news, but it better not be something that we should keep confidential. But what I love about that one, it says, is I will keep confidential information that's privileged by law or that would needlessly hurt the district if disclosed. So that's where the law comes in versus ethics. It might be something that it is legal for you to say, but if it's going to do something needlessly to harm the district, you know, keep it confidential. And sometimes that's hard. There is a district, and a community, small district, but they do, instead of team of 8, they do team of 16. Because if board members have significant others or spouses, they bring them in. Because I will tell everybody, if you are married, biblically you're 2. I mean, you're 1. But for school board purposes, you are 2 people. And you don't want to be sharing stuff with your spouse that would needlessly harm the district. And it was so funny because there was a board member who said, you know, they had gone through this team of 16 training, and one day he came home and his wife, who was an employee of the district, came and said, you know, I heard this is happening, tell me about it. And he said, you know, I can't do that. And she said, yeah, but I really want to know. He said, okay. He said, I will tell you. But as soon as I do, I'm going to go call Dr. Nivens and tell him that I have to resign from the board. And she's like, oh, that's all right. I don't need to know that badly. But it's you know, it's important that we learn to keep confidential. If we have, you know, children or grandchildren, there's certain things that, you know, as a board member, you just don't need to be discussing where they can hear it because it matters.
And I have something to add. These guys have done really well at that. And I have an example. You know, when we did our one-time payment for our staff, it was great news. It wasn't bad news. It wouldn't have done anything but send positive vibes if they'd have said something. But it would have taken the surprise out of it. And every one of these guys had to approve it a month in advance. I mean,
Wow.
we sat on that information for about 30 days before our video went out. Each one of them participated in the video. They went out to hand out the letters to everybody. And it's just an example. You know, it was good news, but they were, you know, and it would have got them a lot of attention at Applebee's.
Oh,
trust
yeah.
me. So, you know, we're good at that. These guys are really good at it, and that makes the other board members trust you. When each person has demonstrated to everybody else, yeah, I got this information, I'm going to do just like everybody else, I'm going to hold it, it builds trust within our group.
It absolutely does. And the converse is also true.
Sure.
If you needlessly, or if you disclose something that's confidential, then other board members say, well, why am I keeping it confidential if she's going to tell everybody or if he's going to tell everybody? And what I've found with ethical violations is that when one board member does it, then it kind of gives other ones permission to do it, and it just goes downhill rapidly. So I love that story. I'll be sharing that because I really like that. And
I want to let Dr. Moore know it was really hard. It was hard, but hey, but you know what? The reward in the end was really great.
But in a time where we need good news, you know, you just want to, but I just can't even imagine keeping that for a month, but that is amazing. That is. Anything else on these that, okay. Commitment to service. I will focus my attention on fulfilling the board's responsibilities and will avoid personal involvement in the activities the board has delegated to the superintendent. I will diligently prepare for and attend board meetings. I will seek continuing education that will enhance my ability to fulfill my duties effectively. What, if anything, stands out for you in those three?
I will diligently prepare and attend the board meetings. I think that's really important. You know, we get weekly notes and we get, you know, agendas and things before the board meeting. And for me, it's, you know, I do a lot of traveling in my business. And so, you know, my time is pretty precious, but I still take the time to try to read everything that comes through. I think it's really important that we're prepared. Because if we're not, then I think we do the community and the kids a disservice. So I personally, and I know my colleagues do the same thing. So I personally try to read everything that gets sent, and, you know, if I have questions, I'll make notes or jot down things. I just try to be as prepared as I possibly can.
Yeah, and you do yourself a disservice because you don't want to be voting on something where you don't have all the information. Sure. And it's so much easier now when you have board book and we have electronics, because it used to be, you know, the packet got delivered to your house and it was all, you know, this big or whatever. And if you were out of town, then you couldn't access it. So that's another way that technology has helped with that.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else? What stands out for you out of those three?
I like number 15, well, you have to focus your attention on fulfilling the board's responsibility and avoid personal involvement in activities the board has designated for the superintendent. And And early on, I had to learn that way back in the late 1990s. Because you can't solve the problem. That's why we pay him the big bucks
Big.
to do a good job. You know, why should I worry myself when I have other things to deal with that's a responsibility of the board? So I think that's a big one. We need to kind of let Dr. Moore do his job.
And Ms. Johnson, you know, I mentioned this earlier. You don't know how much I appreciate you guys doing that. Because when you get involved, it makes it almost impossible for me to do my job. And when you don't, it makes it so easy for me to do my job. So, you know, I said at the beginning, I thought if we had to talk about a bright spot, for me, it was you guys. And you just summed it up. That's it. That's what it's all about. So, and you know, I'm very fortunate. I meet with superintendents all the time. I talked to 2 of them today. And they don't all have the same experience that I do. So thank you.
Hire a good superintendent and get out of the way.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm
Give
going
us
to
a
need
break.
for y'all, after the pandemic is over, to sign up and teach one of our sessions. No, I am absolutely serious, because we lost who I think was during my time on the board in Huntsville, the best superintendent that we had, because there were board members who were in his office every day, who were calling every day to say, this is how you need to do this. We actually had a board member who sat outside his house every morning, the superintendent's house. I have no idea why. I'd never asked. And he didn't share, the superintendent didn't share that till he was leaving to go somewhere else. Yeah. So it's just important. And the problem is, so many times it's about helping one particular person, be it an employee or a parent or a student, and you cannot do for one person what you can't do for everybody. So, and I'll tell you, I am a recovering attorney, and occasionally I will do something for folks and say, please don't tell anybody I did that, because I do it for them, I do it for free, and the next week I get people calling up saying, can you do this? And I know they've told. So even in that time where you think, I'm just going to make this one exception, I'm going to do this for this one person, everybody comes out of the woodworks, and they have a right to. That if you're going to fix it for one person, and it's hard when you get on the board because you want to help everybody. You want to fix things for everybody. You want to say, I'll take care of that, I'll look into that. And the hardest thing to say is, we have a policy that says this is how, you make a complaint and this is how it will happen. And if the only time it comes to the board, it will come to the entire board. And if I've listened to too much of your issue before it comes to the board, I might have to recuse myself. I might not be able to be impartial. And once you say that and you keep saying it, it gets easier. And when you train newer board members to do that, it gets easier. Because here's what happens. If 6 of you are saying that and one of you is saying, I'll fix it, they say, you know what, you're all slugs. But boy, that Noah, he'll, go to him, he'll do that. And it's kind of flattering at first because people are calling you and they're coming to you, and then you realize they just know I haven't read the rules yet. So, absolutely. Anything else out of those that stands out for you? And the last one's my favorite. I will be continuously guided by what is best for all the students of the district. And I love, there was a guy who used to say all means all, and that's all means. It's as we say, I tell people in East Texas, we say everybody. It's everybody, not everybody, it's everybody. U-R-B-O-D-Y, everybody. Yeah, that we're concerned about all of our students. So any questions, any thoughts you want to share around that? Then this is a natural place to take another break. I'm giving you another short bio break. Grab some more drink, grab some more to eat. Walk around, feed your Fitbit. Remember, we're still live streaming. And I say that for me, not for you.
forgot what I called you for.
Oh, that.
It was, on the stuff we were working on, so,
On what?
on the stuff we were working on.
Oh, the,
Yeah.
they need.
I was gonna just pass it through you, see what you thought, you know.
I love your wording on it.
And I
I
see
was
what,
like, wow.
what Wayne did, he kind of, I read his, and I'm still, you know, it takes a little time because you have to keep reading it, and keep checking out. Because I like how he put it up, how he kind of blended in with his.
And he's real good.
He blended mine just.
No, ma'am, I'm fine, thank
He
you.
said, and he said, well, what do you think about this?
You are also, I'm just gonna take this with me because it,
In the same.
I could tell.
He reworded it because I wanted it for the way I put it. I didn't know how to word it.
Oh.
But he worded it a lot better.
Well,
Yeah,
if I go
he-
hungry,
and-
it's
and I
not,
had to
it's
get-
not your
because he
fault.
put in the confusion.
Whereas if I don't put my food, my clothes, it is your fault.
We don't want Houston, you know.
Yes.
different-
I know.
I thought about that and I said, but I didn't know how to
It's a
word
great group of folks.
the one about.
I work with
somebody
boards that
did
don't even
something
speak to
wrong.
each
I'm
other
gonna just tell
sometimes.
them, but
Who literally say, don't call me, don't text me,
Let's say,
you know.
facilities
And
came
that's
out and
sad,
they found
because
out
it
they-
shouldn't be.
They did something out of the
For sure.
ordinary, to kind of smear their name. Do we need to
Yeah.
put that in the policy? And I want to just let them do that one.
And I was very serious about them presenting something.
Before
I
we
think
move
they
on,
should. I'm planting a seed.
It will be investigated.
I will.
Yeah, at the very,
I will.
you're right.
So
There was
that-
something
Thank
that They
you.
could have covered that. You're
So
right.
that covered
It didn't
everything.
cover that too. 'Cause, yeah, he
And
just
I
worded
like
it
that.
different.
Oh, let me get up and use the restroom before she calls.
Yeah.
Some ladies that, uh-oh.
I'm good.
I ate too much. You can hear it? You can hear it. I can hear it.
Wow. Wow. I certainly, I definitely need y'all to present.
So one of the agreements these guys have is they all agree, doesn't involve me, it's that they're gonna read their stuff ahead of time, any concern they're gonna have, they're gonna have ahead of time. They, I've never had a discussion. Yeah, most of the time they say, one or more calls, ask some questions, and then we'll, we'll just talk. But usually when they vote, it's 7-0. Now, they may disagree before. Right. But, that's got to. see me the other day. He said,
And, yeah, you knew what you were getting into. That's the beauty of it.
I've been here my whole career, but then I watched them beat me, you know,
Absolutely. Oh, but I think you've created a culture here. You have continued and improved on that culture, because if you don't attend to it, even the best situation deteriorates. And one day you look up and you're not cutting edge anymore, and you're not. It does, and I actually learned, because we always taught, as long as you've got, if you've got one outlier, try to bring them into the fold, but if they can't come, one person can tear up the board. One person can tear up the board. I mean, and to keep this morning, because sometimes I'll see harmonious groups. One thing will happen, some big thing in the community, not even necessarily even in the media, but they'll be on opposite sides of it. Yeah. Exactly. There's some things we need to.
When we walked in, it was only about less than 10
If you were talking,
So we just decided to say.
So many people have
And it was
been
like the other person must have been where their sign was.
both working at home, kids are home, and that has put more
We
strain
stayed
on
in and felt real
relationships.
good too. So, yeah, but I did mention that to him. I said, you'll be okay? And I said, because that'll be the end of April. And he said,
Oh, wow.
yeah, but I'm hoping that they practice distancing and stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're gonna still be doing it by the winter. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the only, yeah. That's the only thing. But, I think we feel a little bit better, like the shot, the vaccine. I think that just makes us feel a little bit better. Yeah. So that's why I haven't been fussing too much. Because he asked me, he said, you want to meet? I said, yeah, I'm gonna go in, because I kind of miss seeing the people and everything. And at least I see them. And I said, they're gonna practice it here. I said, I know they're gonna do it. And then, so I came
But the
here
very
one
fact
day,
that you're thinking
and I
of
like
it
how they had
means
the
that you're going to be,
clean. And see, I didn't know that. So you can't tell when you're looking on the screen. And I didn't know. And that's why I said, well, God, I went and they got little dividers in between us. I said, and it looks so safe.
we snipped every person.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's why.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
I feel good.
right that create anxiety for you. And how do we get you past that?
And so many times they can tell you.
A lot of people think that,
If
it's sitting in the beach, it's huge. Have you ever been to Sydney?
They lay it right out there. The older they get, the more they get.
Oh, okay.
Right. Right.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. In fact, they have, when Sean Watson was in, that was North Channel, because they were spraying people in and all this stuff. And but the place is huge.
I don't want to snitch on anybody.
So I think they'll be,
all of those things.
I think they'll
You
do
develop
that.
that culture that says we're trying to keep
So
everybody healthy.
I asked him
We're
today,
trying to take care of
so you
everybody.
think you'll be okay? And he finally, he said, yep.
Yes.
Because I was a little hesitant at first, and then I said,
Okay,
we'll be good.
we are in the home stretch.
She said, we're in the home stretch. My mic on? Uh-oh, come here.
Mine, oh,
Sort of.
You haven't heard us over the talking?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had a team of 16 training with a guy?
It's on now.
That'd be,
You know what, I was looking for that. Okay. Okay, gotcha.
I have.
Hey, Wanda, you know, we should have a team of 16
Really?
training, because I'd love to have Guy here.
Oh, wow.
It'd be the best meeting we've ever.
What about me?
Of course you, but you know how funny Guy is. He'd have us cracked
I
up.
have a flat sense of humor. I know what
Really?
you're saying. I've already been told.
Wow.
I've been told so many times. They said, "You're married to him?" Yeah. And I said, "Yes." They said, "You're so opposite." I cannot joke. I do not have a human bone in my body.
I was looking through all the bios and looking at the commonalities. I went to U of H Law School, so I did. It is. No, what that means, what I tell people is, if you can go from junior high to high school, then you can go from high school to college, then you can go to college, from college to law school. But what's funny was, it was probably my senior year of college, and you know how you kind of, it seemed so far off, and I was just burned out, and I went in and talked to our college lawyer, and I said, "Are there people that you think aren't cut out for school?" She goes, "Yeah, there are, but it's not you." And she said, she told me about how much she loved law school. And I just sat there, burned out, looking at this woman like she was a lunatic. And her eyes lit up, and she just said, "Oh, I loved it," and she went on and on. And when I went to law school, I understood what she meant. Because my favorite thing is you can be lost for an entire semester. But if you can pull it together by the end of the semester for the one exam that you have, you're fine. And actually, this is the truth. I went to law school pregnant. Because it didn't occur to me that you didn't. And I mean, but I couldn't be stressed out about it because I was pregnant.
You were stressed out about something else.
Well, yeah, and no matter what happened, I was still going to have a baby. And so I didn't stay up all night. I couldn't stay up all night studying. So I would sleep for an hour, I'd read for an hour, I'd sleep for an hour, I'd read for an hour. And I just thought, I'm going to stay here until they send me a letter that says, "Ma'am, please don't come back. You're not cut out for this. This is not what you're meant to do." And if I got the letter, I was going to go back anyway and make sure that they meant to send that to me. I mean, you just have to have that sense of, I can't fail.
Right.
I mean, because even if they kick me out, I'm still pregnant, I'm still going to go back home and have a baby.
Right.
So I started school, I guess in August. The baby was born in February. I took 2 weeks off and went back to school.
Wow.
And we were down here, he was in Wheeler Avenue Baptist Nursery, and I would run over between classes. But it's that sense that it's just not that important. If I hadn't finished law school, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. I would have done something else. So it's that sense that, because we used to tell kids that anything that you do, it doesn't matter how you do it, just be the best at it. And now we kind of put qualifiers on it, and now everybody wants to be a reality TV star, so it doesn't, none of that matters. My grandson used to want to play baseball, and he was going to be Altuve, but now he's going to make his fortunes playing Fortnite. I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but just that sense that you get to change your mind.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. Okay. If you will turn to the next page after that, I love that you have ones from BBF Local. And there were just a couple on here that I thought were a little bit different, and I wanted to highlight them for you. And they're bulleted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th bullet down says support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. And I think it is so important because when you talk about, giving that increase and keeping it quiet, that's giving that support. And it wasn't even so much the money as the idea that it said, we appreciate you, we care about you, we know how hard you're working. Because what I heard last year was every teacher was a brand new teacher.
That's true.
It didn't matter how many years of experience you had, there was nothing that really said, teach virtually, teach in person, you know, all of the things that came with the pandemic. And I was just blown away by what teachers did.
Not only was every teacher new, every employee was new, because everybody had a different set of circumstances to work with. Our bus drivers, their circumstances changed. It wasn't just picking up everybody all at one stop and take. We had all kind of different things happening. Our custodians worked overtime every day.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, many times they were being asked to go into buildings where we knew there were sick people. And so our teachers had a huge expectation, but so did a whole lot of other people, our student nutrition workers. You know, we fed 1 million meals outside. And I don't know if you've been outside in Texas lately in the summer, but it's pretty miserable. So, you know, and they had masks on and gloves and long sleeves. So there was a whole bunch of people that had to do that.
Yeah. But that idea of supporting them and protecting them. You know, I had a superintendent who said that, I mean, obviously the buck stops with the superintendent on everything, but it literally was life or death for folks. You know, I've got to keep my staff safe. I've got to keep my students safe. I've got to make sure parents are safe. And it was just that sense of every decision that you make is going to affect that. So I love that idea of supporting and protecting school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. Because sometimes my kids think that, or kids tend to think that we're going to support them no matter what, right or wrong, good or bad. And yes, we do love them. But what I used to tell my kids is, when you're right, I'll support you. When you're wrong, I will report you. You know, it's just, we want, and because at some point when I was a prosecutor, I prosecuted juveniles. And the kids whose parents came to get them out of everything kept doing more and more, because I think it was to find those boundaries. And I had to learn that you can give your kids too much. And if I support my kids, my own personal kids or anybody, when they're wrong, I'm not doing them a service. So I like that one. Anything else on here that stands out for y'all while I found the other one that I thought hadn't been covered in the other ones?
The two-way communication.
Absolutely. And that
Just
works.
Just like Dr. Moore said, sometimes we're quick to pass out information, but we also need to get information.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add something that'll help these guys. You know, one of the things that helps me do my duties is when I have some eyes in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you know, these guys all expect me to get up in the morning, get up here and get going on my job. Well, obviously I'm not on Facebook at 9 in the morning when some parent or child or community member puts something out there that could be negative. You know, things happen. So it really helps me when one of these guys send me a text. Hey man, did you know? Or hey, did you hear that, you know, we're not going to do this, or we're going to do that, or this school's doing this? And, you know, I would love to be able to tell them, yeah, man, I know everything that's going on up here all the time. But the reality is I don't. And sometimes when I get the heads up from one of them, it helps me head something off that would be a really big problem later.
Yes.
And, you know, so all of these guys have participated in that and helped me. And I really think that is crucial to our Team of 8 success. Because, like I said, I can't be everywhere. I don't know I know a lot of people, but I don't know every person in the community. And so, you know, when something's out there and it's negative, the fastest way that we can get on top of that is when they let me know and I can get somebody on it. And we don't always fix every problem now. Sometimes, you know, if I'm, like you said, we're making a decision for kids, sometimes an adult may be upset.
Yeah.
But at least we can do is explain. And, you know, our community gives us a lot of grace when we're transparent and honest. And so You know, as long as we're able to do that, it's a big deal. So when these guys see things and they're able to communicate and let me know, then that's just like the public letting us know. You understand?
Yes.
It's just like, you know, it's like having 8 superintendents out there reading Facebook or reading whatever social media site it is and getting it to the proper people.
I think the important part there is getting it to the proper people.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I can tell you, I have engaged in a couple of social media fights. And usually, it's not even on my page. I'll be reading something that my son posted, and somebody will say something, then I say something, and then I wait a minute, whoa. You don't even know this person. And you're not going to change their mind, but it's so easy to get sucked into that. And I always had to remember that what I could say as a private citizen, what I could do as a private citizen, K. Douglas, was really different from what I could do and say as K. Douglas school board member. Because even if I tell people, I'm just speaking for myself, I'm just one of 7, what they heard was the board said. When I did things, they said the board did. And it didn't matter how I gave, you know, denials and it's just hard. Not that you lose your ability to have free speech. Lord knows I am not saying that. But again, it's always taking how will this be perceived and how will it affect my fellow board members. And that was hard because you're elected all by yourself. I mean, your name's on the ballot by yourself. But once you get here, as you said, you're one of 7. If you can't, I always tell my brand new board members, if you can't convince 3 of those nuts that your idea is a good idea, then it doesn't matter. And you can have the best ideas, but if you don't develop that bond that y'all are talking about, that trust, that, you know, that you're going to tell me the truth, that if you say something with your years of experience, that, you know, that I'm going to say, you know what, he's been here longer, he's been doing that, she's been here longer, they've been here. And even, and I always say, even little kids tell me things I didn't know. So it's not just, you know, experience or age, it is also that I'm going to listen with an open mind, and you may say something, I go, you know, I never thought of that. I'll tell you an embarrassing story. We had a washer, and you know how the washers have the hole in the agitator? Well, you know, people say that word anymore. Yeah. But it's so you can pour, you know, the fabric softener in there. And once you pour the fabric softener, and this is old school because they don't even do that anymore, but you had to pour water in because then it would dilute it so it wouldn't stain your clothes. Well, I'd turn on the washer, I'd put in the fabric softener, I would walk to my kitchen sink, get water, and take it back and pour it in the agitator. My niece, who's much younger than I am, and I didn't think she was that bright, she said, why don't you take the water out of the washer and put it in there? Why are you walking all the way to the sink? But in my brain, that was how I had done it. So and I didn't mean to say my niece wasn't bright. I love her. She was our favorite niece. But anyway, but we get such tunnel vision about how something has to be done. I don't know if y'all heard, we had a speaker at it's not winter governance anymore, governance camp, and he said, you know, 2 + 2 is 4, and we'll all agree that 2 + 2 is 4, but I'm going to argue with you that 2 + 2 is 4, and I stopped thinking that 3 + 1 is also 4, 8 divided by 2 is also 4, that there's so many ways to do something, and I loved that, because yeah, that it's the wisdom of everybody, and whether you're a brand new board member or you're a seasoned board member, everybody has something to contribute. Anything else on here that stood out for you? And then we are going to look at the framework because we are in the home stretch and we are going to be out of here because I know y'all have real things to do. Okay, I think that covered it. What I want to do is spend a little bit of time, because we've got just over half an hour left, talking about the changes to the framework, because this is only the second time there have been changes. There were changes in 2012 and then changes in 2020. And in some ways, these are, they're kind of bigger changes, because if you remember the old framework, the first section said vision. And it had some of the things that are under there now, but now it says vision and goals. because, you know, vision is that idealized state of where you want to be somewhere in the future. But if you don't have the goals in place to get there, it's just a dream. So a couple of bullets under here, I'm going to look quickly to see which things have changed. The second bullet says adopts a shared vision that incorporates input from the community to reflect local aspirations as well as the present and future needs of all children. And one of the interesting things is somebody told me that as a school board member, you are trying to decide what a child who comes in pre-K or kindergarten will need in 13 or 14 years. I don't even know what I'm going to wear tomorrow, but as a board member, I had to have that kind of vision. But one of the things that's changed is it talks about input from the community. It talks about local aspirations, because sometimes when people talk about accountability and what, you know, the federal government requires and what the state, you know, what TEA requires, your community has aspirations for your kids that have nothing to do with a STAR test, that, you know, there are things that your community is doing that couldn't be measured by the state. Not to denigrate, you know, anything that the state does, but you all go beyond that. And that vision allows you to say, what do we want our kids to be able to do? What values do we want our kids to have, aside from what the state and the feds require? So that one talks about taking into account what the community says. A couple of bullets down says you adopt a reasonable number of specific, quantifiable, research-based, and time-bound goals, which is just, you know, what we've been talking about with SMART goals, that again are that align with state law, develop with community input, and support that vision. But I think one of the most important words there is a reasonable number. Because when I talk to boards, and I know y'all, I'm preaching to the choir, but sometimes they'll have, you know, 20, 30 goals. Because if they don't have a goal for it, the district's not going to do it, the superintendent's somehow not going to do it. But, you know, you all understand that he's going to do those things regardless. So if you focus on a small number of things, it will be better. Anything under vision and goals that stands out for you all?
FYI for you, we're working on that, what you just said, exactly. Reducing our number of goals, trying to make them quantifiable. You know, we're still responsible for teaching everybody and everybody getting better and all that stuff, but looking at a few a year and not trying to look at everything every single year. So you're exactly correct. And we're right in the middle of that process. They've approved the areas we're going to look in. We're going to get them some targets out this week probably, ask for some feedback, see what they think about what we came up with, if we need to have a special meeting to go over it, so on, so on, so on. But exactly what you just said is exactly what we're doing.
He paid me to say that. No, just kidding. But the other reason is because if the community can focus on those few things that you're focused on, they can help you get there. But when we make it so difficult for them to even know if we're progressing, then they can't. But it really does make a difference, because the research says the more goals you have, the less effective you are at reaching any of them. It's like, you know, scattering versus, anyway, you got me. The second bullet, or the second category, used to say, oh God, what did it used to say? Structure. And now they changed it to say systems and processes, which I think gives you a better idea of what it means. And I'm going to pull out a couple of bullets under there. The third one down says that you monitor multiple measurable elements of student progress and achievement throughout the year. And, you know, when we do the Senate Bill 1566 or the ISO training, you know, we talk about the fact that the STAR test is really an autopsy. It's after the school year's over, and it's, you know, did they learn it or did they not? But having those measurable things throughout the year, which your district's already doing. Your teachers are already doing benchmarking and doing those things. But having those things gives them an idea of how well they might be progressing on those things. So they just incorporated that. So it wasn't just waiting for that one high-stakes test, it is having those measures throughout the year, which makes sense. You kind of go, duh, but we weren't all doing it, so. Let me see what else has changed here. About 5 bullets up from the bottom on that page, it says welcomes and values all people and cultures as important stakeholders in the process for student success. And I think we were talking earlier about how you set the culture for your district. And districts can be side by side, but the cultures be totally different. One example is, do you encourage people to innovate? And when you're encouraging people to innovate, it means you've got to give them grace to fail. Because if I'm going to try new things, some of those things I'm going to try aren't going to work. And there was a corporation, I got to stop telling this story until I realized what corporation it was, but they had a wall of failure. And the CEO was the one who put the first thing up there and said, I tried this, it didn't work, but here's what I learned. And what it said was, it's okay to fail. Not only is it okay, we expect you to, and here's what we learned. So that you're setting up that culture that allows your staff to do that, to say, we don't know how to teach virtually like this or teach virtually, but we're going to do it. Okay, anybody else see anything under there that stands out for you? I'm trying to see, again, what else has changed. Okay, I promise I'm letting you out in a minute. Okay, the third one used to just say accountability. And now it says progress and accountability. Again, not just the end result, but how are we, getting through this. And it says now the board sets clear goals, provides resources and support, evaluates goal attainment, and engages in ongoing objective feedback on progress and commitments. So it's that idea of setting a clear goal, providing the resources and support, because our teachers, our students can do anything if we give them, again, that resource and support. So it talks about that, and I'm trying to think of, I'm going to check under here quickly what I want to highlight for you there. The third one down, again, talks about equity. It says, ensures equity throughout the system by regularly identifying inequities, updating policies, and appropriately distributing resources. And, you all know the difference between equality and equity. Equity is giving each person what they need. Equality is giving everybody exactly the same thing, which sounds really good until you've ever been one of several children, or you've had or worked with several children, and you realize, again, even identical twins don't need the exact same things. So I like that this revision takes into account that we're trying to, again, give everybody what it is that they need, whether it's a student, a staff member, a family. Okay. The fourth one used to just say advocacy, and now it says advocacy and engagement. And several of these changed, but I will, again, call your attention to the third bullet down that talks about ensures multiple forms of two-way communications will be used to engage, empower, and connect students, families, staff, media, and the community. And I remember years ago when I would ask new board members, how many of you have a district Facebook page? And people were like, oh, no, that's satanic. We don't do that. But what district doesn't have a Facebook page now? Doesn't have Twitter, doesn't have, they even have, people have YouTube channels. You're live streaming graduation. So if Exactly. Just that fast, but that's multiple means of communication. And, when it first started with Twitter, people are like, we don't have a Twitter page. Well, everybody in your district is not going to use social media, but there are people who are using it, so it's one more way. And, there are things that will be different from, 5 years from now. There are a number of things under there, but I won't labor it. And the fifth one used to say unity. And one of the reasons it changed to synergy and teamwork, which my boss actually said that most people polled, those are two of the words they hate worst in business, synergy and teamwork. But we were accused of saying that people confuse unity with unanimity, that you all had to be, group think, or, that you had to be uniform. And we don't want board members to be uniform. We want you to be united, but not uniform. You each bring your... So I think that's why they changed the words, and forgive me if you don't like the new ones, but that was the thinking behind it. And it says the board's duties are distinct, and the board works effectively as a collaborative unit and as a team with the superintendent to lead the district in fulfilling the vision and goals. One of the things, we talked about homophily, where you kind of want to surround yourself with people who think like you do. When I'm confused, I go to what is comfortable for me, which is why the first 2 times I spoke in 6 months on the board, it had to do with law, because that was how I was trained. So it's really easy as a board member to go to what is most familiar to you if you were an educator, if you're a business person. But it's bringing those, using those skills, but not to the exclusion of other people. Does that make sense? So it's not that because I'm a lawyer, I know everything about, I don't become the district's lawyer because that's the skill I bring. So it's important to stay in my lane, but also work with the superintendent. One of the things that's under this one is recognizing each individual's trustee's duty as a trustee and fiduciary for the entire district. And I like that because it's kind of legal stuff. But it just means that you all hold in trust the education, the finances, the facilities, all of those things for the community. And we each one of the board members has that duty. And the third one down at the very bottom of page 4 was in the old one, but it was in somehow under vision. And it says that the trustees remain focused on goals and priorities as opposed to individual agendas apart from the shared vision. So kind of a duh moment, but okay, I think that's all I want to call your attention to. And the reason we have to talk about the framework or the new framework is because what it says in the preamble is that every year you will look at what further continuing education you need as a team and as individuals. So take a moment to look at those broad categories or anything else that you feel like if I, as a board member, learned more about this during this next year, I would feel more competent to do, to be a board member. And this is not TASB training. This is not I come back and train you. This is what do you need as a team to move forward? What's the next thing that you should learn together? And what do you need individually? So let's take a minute to look at that, and I will have to ask you.
Where is that?
From those 5 categories?
It can, I'm glad you said that. It can be one of those 5 categories. It could be school finance. It could be, parental involvement. That's just a starting point, those 5 categories, but you can literally say anything. And it's actually in the preamble. And I don't actually see it in the new one, but it's in the preamble that every year you look at those things as part of your team building. Yes, it's still in the preamble.
On what page is that, please, ma'am?
I don't see it on this copy. It's it's what comes before the actual 5 things, but it's that would be perfect, because in this copy of the old one, it's what's up here. It's just the preamble, and I don't think it's changed, but it is on the TEA website. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Where is it?
It's not in the copy that you have right now, but it is on the TEA website, and it didn't, I don't think it changed at all, but basically what it says is, to effectively meet the challenges of public education, school boards and superintendents, oh, well, never mind. Each leadership team must annually assess their development needs as a corporate body and Each leadership team must annually assess their development needs as a corporate body and individually to gain an understanding of these 5 things. So you can pull out a particular bullet point under one of them, or you can just, again, tell me something that just is an issue of interest to you in this coming year.
So I have a comment. I don't know that I have an answer, but
Okay.
with so much unknown, I really think that we need to be light on our feet and fast to change whatever we set as our goal, because it could change on us. So just kind of like we're doing with the school district, we can pick something that we want to go with, knowing that based upon decisions by the state and so on, we might have to swap our focus around, because if they make a major change in funding, then that obviously, like Ramon said, that drives everything we do, and we need to understand it, right? But if they don't, then maybe it's more about how we're going to handle virtual education or something along those lines. So, we can pick whatever you guys think we need today, but that could change really quickly in the next 2 months. I would say mid-June probably is when we'll know. So we can go ahead and pick a couple of things, and then we'll just be prepared to change if we have to.
And nobody comes to make sure you did those things. This is just a starting point. Has there been any talk about a special session? Because that always sends us beyond June. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to even say that. Forget. Cancel.
There went that spot of hair. Right there on my forehead. If they do, I don't know how the legislature can wait any later than June to tell us what's in front of us. I mean, it's a huge undertaking to change. We did it this year, and I think we're fairly successful, but there's a lot of hurdles that we, hit along the way that, so I really hope we have some information by June.
I do too.
Kay, can you go over again exactly what you want us to do?
It requires me to ask you what further continuing education you need. So in this coming year, what do you as a team need to learn more about to be better at what you do? And what do you individually need? And it can be anything. I need at least one thing for each of you and one for the team. I mean, I don't do anything with you. It's just to get you to think about.
Okay, so for me, you can put down vision.
Okay.
Okay? I'm really looking hard out there for that vision. I'm having a hard time seeing it. So I'm going to need some training in how to operate in the environment I'm in and make good, sound decisions.
Okay.
I want to be able to understand the budget better.
You and me both.
I'm the same thing. I think finances, for me personally, would be something that I could use some training on.
Okay.
I'll third that, and also, it says approve goals, policies, and programs that ensure a safe and secure learning environment. Now with the pandemic, everybody's worried about a safe learning environment. Whether it's even at home, whether it's even at school, where it's, some parents are taking their kids, I guess, to work. Is that a safe environment? So, and that's probably going to change by the day, by the hour. And, that's the challenges that we face not just as a school district, but I think even as a society, moving forward, I mean, this is gonna change us probably forever.
I think you're right. And remember when safe and secure learning environment meant something totally different to us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 3 years ago, it was safe from guns, and now it's, you know, that's kind of, now it's something else. Next year, it might be something different.
What this taught us is we don't know anything. We can, as you say, plan, but it could be disrupted like that. Never saw this one coming.
Herbert, can you hear me? What do you think in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm with you regarding like pandemic stuff. I would think more disaster management training and more teamwork with our local agencies like Harris County, you know, Office of Homeland Security and all that. Because if we think this is going to be the last pandemic or the last emergency that we're going to have, we're clueless. This is going to continue happening, so we need to be more prepared. And I think if we do that ahead of time, then we'll be ahead of the curve.
I think you're exactly right. You know, as superintendent, I've experienced 2 hurricanes, a Texas blizzard, a global pandemic, and, you know, we're not even 9 months along. So, you know, I had an employee ask me, do you think there's a chance we could have earthquakes in Texas? I'm like, boy, I sure hope not.
You never know.
But I agree with you, Herbert, and getting all those people on the same page is difficult, because remember, they're run by people who are elected, and that changes all the time. So, you know, you have a particular person you've been working with, an election comes, they change their operating procedures, and they don't share. So that's huge.
I hadn't been drinking yet, but I suspect that this coronavirus might be the first shot of World War III. That's what I think.
You never know, man.
We don't. We don't.
Never know.
Okay, who else knows what they would individually pick, and also if there's something else for the team, or something for the team?
Well, I have something that's personal.
Okay.
Being an educator, when it comes to accountability and the progress and engagement, I'm pretty good in that. But every time I would go to the TASB meeting or National School Board meeting, I'm always drawn to either school law or either construction. And construction is a big one for me when we talk about bond elections and stuff like that. And I would like to really feel a little bit more comfortable, you know, in learning about construction in the school district.
Okay.
You know, that's really good, Wanda, because, you know, for us to do all the things that we want to do with this district and continue to grow and continue to renovate and do the thing, we're going to probably have to do, well, we will have to do another bond election. So I'd like for us to do, as a team, some training on that.
Okay.
Okay.
I also agree because, you know, I'm on the board for the construction. Well, not the board, the team.
Committee.
And there's so many things I don't understand. It's right in front of me and I still don't see it. And so I need help in that area.
Okay.
Construction is a big one for me. I feel like everybody sees it except me.
And
That's not the case.
That's not true, Norma, but
That's
We just hide it well.
That's not true, Norma. Everybody just hides it really good, so.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the kind of thing we're talking about or not, but in the past, we have had occasions when the school board would get together in a social thing, and we would begin by going around the room and everybody giving a little biography, you know, and I felt like that, knowing everybody on a more personal, rather than just seeing them 2 times a month, I've always thought that's really helpful to building a team.
I would agree. And I think it was on one of the breaks that I said, I work with boards that don't speak to each other. So the idea of going to something social just wouldn't work, but it actually is what builds that trust. It can be. And yeah, I think that is. And even if you've known somebody for a long time, they can still say something that you didn't know, and it really does.
I didn't know he had a twin.
Oh, you did?
You did?
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah.
Well, I certainly
I
didn't.
knew that.
But
They look just identical.
Bless his heart.
and he's better at he was better at English
I'm
than
the
you.
better looking twin. Just saying.
I
I'm
love
just
it.
saying.
I love it. But yes, I absolutely think that is something that, and I was not kidding about wanting you all to present at a conference. I mean, because what you take for granted, other districts are struggling to get to.
Especially I.S.D.
I wasn't mentioning anybody's names, but when you have your own board game that your constituents are playing during your meetings, it's unique. Y'all do know about that, right?
I heard something
Okay,
about it. I
okay.
wasn't.
You didn't hear it from me. But it really does. It don't take it for granted at all. Because so many times when this is all you've known, especially when you're new board members and there's been, camaraderie and there's been respect, you think that's the given, but it's not anymore. So don't take it for granted.
And Kay, I like your idea about the 16 with the teamwork. I think, I remember, I don't know if you remember, years back, Dr. Neely had us with our spouses and stuff, I think one time throughout the whole time. And I think that is a good idea that you had mentioned earlier, instead of a team of 8, a team of 16.
You
And
gonna bring Guy?
I'm not gonna-
We all know spouses.
Well, and I'll tell you how it came about. Dr. Nivens was a former professional football player, so he's this really large African-American man, because for a football player, and he was in Walmart right after they had been hired by the district, and his wife was on one aisle, he was on another, and he could hear somebody coming up to his wife saying, I heard your husband was going to change all this, and they were going to do this, and he was going to do that. So he came around and said, ma'am, I'm Dr. Nivens, it's nice to meet you, but I have no intention of changing anything before I understand how it works. So no, I can allay your fears, but he realized that if you have a spouse in the district or kids or grandchildren, but I mean, you don't invite all of them, but people come up to them and tell them stuff or ask them things or ask them to, to fix things. So it was important. But yeah, I thought that was his idea. I can take no credit for it, but I thought when I heard it, it was a good idea. And they presented about it at conferences. Yeah, so something to think about. Okay, I think I have at least one thing from everybody and a couple of things for the team. So that's really all I need from you. Is there anything else that anybody needs to share for the good of the group? I have truly enjoyed being here, and I haven't even gotten to eat the food yet, so I will be in love with y'all. And
You're official.
I am official, yes. This is, when we used to go to church on Sundays, and my mother would send us because she was a nurse and she might work all night. So we'd go home with our bulletin to say, we went to church, here's our bulletin. So this is proof that I have been here.
That's right.
In case anybody wants to know. But anybody that you want to share before you go back into executive session, y'all aren't done working.
Just thank you for coming, Ms. Douglas. We appreciate it. It's very informative. I truly enjoyed visiting with you on this stuff, so thank you.
Amen.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you. And I will share one thing. I was going at a conference, and I was on an escalator going up, and there was one of my new board members on the escalator going down, and he said, you were my first teacher. You were so good. And I was there basking in just, oh, yes. He said, I don't remember a thing you said, but boy, we had fun. So nobody ever remembers what I say, but thank you for letting me have fun, and thank you for having a superintendent and a board that has fun. So I will get out of your hair. And
Yes, ma'am, and on behalf of all of us, thank you.
My pleasure.
On behalf of all the children in Galena Park, you make us all better,
Absolutely.
and that helps our children, all 22,100 of them.
That's right.
Thank you for your efforts and your time It's greatly appreciated, and, every time you are taught something new, when you're able to apply that to make other people's lives better, it reminds us why we do what we do. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
My pleasure.
Thank
And
you,
it-
Ms. Douglas,
thank you,
and
Mr.
have a
Perry.
safe trip home.
Well, it was nice to work somewhere that I can be there in an hour and a few minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll be home before midnight. I am so impressed. Do I get to steal my snacks out of here
Yes,
and
ma'am.
throw them in here?
No, ma'am, the whole thing.
That bag is for you.
No!
Here, take
Now you have a
Now-
lunchbox.
Now I feel bad for begging for a mask.
There's one for your,
Oh.
for your significant other. There, take two. Remember what we say, team is 16 training. There, you gotta take care of it.
Y'all are just so sweet. Thank you. I feel like I've been on Let's
We have to
Make a
close the
Deal. I
meeting
don't know if I can get all my.
Goodies out of here.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got this.
An executive session of the board will now again be held on the matters containing notice for this meeting is authorized by sections 551.001 through sections 551.084 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 7:23 p.m. Staff, with the exception of Dr. Moore and Ms. Valdez, are dismissed from the boardroom at this time. All other staff joining us via video conference will be placed in a Zoom waiting room. Staff who are live streaming the meeting, please stop the live stream video. Executive session is adjourned. The live streaming has begun again, and the board is now in open session. The time is 7:30 p.m. There being no other business before the board at this time, the meeting is adjourned. It is 7:30 p.m.
All right, guys.